it was amazing how much ice there is in the water that's calved off.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty bad.
I was there with an NSF project for 3 weeks on the ice sheet, measuring the movement of the ice 10
What
years
year?
ago.
Oh, wow. Were you part of this ice project that's out of Boulder?
No, a little bit different. This was a very like specific project to measure the movement of the ice as a lake formed and then drained rapidly.
Right.
And we like saw icebergs in the distance on this lake spinning like if a toy boat was spinning
Yeah.
in a bathtub when you pulled the plug.
Oh
Um,
my God.
yeah, it's pretty specific. But yeah, I can see if I can find some articles on the project. But it was yeah, there was a couple different scientists, a couple different main focuses of each scientist. So
It's preview coming attractions.
yeah. Yes, exactly. Big deal. Hello, everybody. I think we have a full house.
Sure looks like it. Thanks, Larry.
Is Chris Larson here?
So Chris Larson and Laura King are going to be absent this evening. You have everybody that you are expecting tonight. And I'm here hosting, so if you guys run into anything that you need help with, just shout my name. I'll be here with you the whole time, but kind of multitasking as we go. So if you need anything, just please let me know.
Thanks, Macy.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're running a little late, but that should be fine. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:52 p.m. And as far as roll, we have Laura and Chris that are absent. All the other members are present. And the first thing on our agenda is, and I'll just go over this because we have a few visitors here. The first thing on the agenda is rights of nature with Gary. So thanks for being here, Gary. And then the second one is U.S. solar options. So we got Tim here. That's great. Our third one is Solar Ordinance Subcommittee recommendations. And Cynthia's here for that. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And I suppose, do any of the SAB members have anything they want to start with, or do you want to hear from Gary first as far as rights of nature?
Actually, I would like to start. You know,
yeah.
I want to thank Gary for his help with this initiative going back many months. And the draft that you all have in front of you is just that, a draft that we came up with some time ago. And, you know, my name really shouldn't be in there. But, you know, we kind of talked about this briefly at the last meeting. And I thought Rich had a really good suggestion, which was maybe we should have the entire SAB board be guardians. And the other thing that, you know, I think is true when I look at this language is, you know, I certainly don't have the expertise to arrive at the assessments mentioned in the resolution, and nor does anybody in Nederland staff. So I think one thing that Tom and I talked about offline a while ago with Erica was that perhaps what we should be looking at is a way to communicate with the regulating bodies or the people who have the expertise. So, you know, there are two issues to me here. One is the general state of the watershed, and the other is what's going on in the watershed. What kind of industrial commercial uses are there, and what kind of regulatory systems can we bring to bear on those activities? And, you know, one thing we discovered in the process previously, thanks to Gary's help, helping to connect the dots, was that the state of Colorado, the county of Boulder, and the city of Boulder are the ones that really regulate the things that go on in the watershed, particularly the water that goes into Boulder's water supply. And so, you know, the state of Colorado, when we were in touch with them, the regulators that looked at things like mining said, we go on a complaint basis. You know, the mine does its water quality evaluations. They turn in reports to the state. And I think we need to be in touch with the state and say, we want to be in the loop. The county has regulatory authority. We talked to two people in a meeting, and they talked about the things they do with respect to regulating industrial activity. And the city of Boulder, Miranda forwarded a name of a lady who is involved in watershed issues. So to me, what I'd rather have to say, and I'm not precluding some of the language that was suggested, would be that we would have SAB and therefore Nederland in touch with these regulatory agencies that have the staff and the expertise to really gather information and let us know what's going on. And then, you know, as a group, we can look at that information, share it with the Board of Trustees, and see what, if anything, we'd like to do. And, you know, the other thing that's developed and has come to the surface in the meantime is the ordinance, the Watershed Ordinance that I think BOT proposed, which would be a regulatory device we can institute, we can implement in our own watershed that stretches up towards Eldora. So the town of Eldora. So those are things that have occurred since this was put forward. I do think the language in general is noteworthy, worthy of aspiration, but beyond the scope of what perhaps we could do without the help of other people. But I really like to see what Gary seems to think about some of these ideas I just put forward. And, you know, Gary, you know what other entities who've passed rights of nature are doing to address these, and it would be really informative if you could share that with us.
Sure. Thanks, Alan. I just want to make sure you can all hear me. Can you hear me?
We do.
Okay, great. Yeah, Gary Walker, I'm the director of Save the Colorado. And I'll just give you a little bit of background. About a year and a half ago, we started this Rights of Nature for Rivers and Watersheds program. We're really excited with how it's moving forward in the state of Colorado and beyond. We're working very closely with the Earth Law Center, which is an international organization that is involved in this issue all over the planet. And you know the general problem we all face, and we face right here in Nederland, Colorado. And just so you know, I'm a homeowner up on Hummer Drive, and so I'm a part-time resident of Nederland and just a huge fan of the community and trying to protect nature and protect the watershed there in Nederland. The Earth Law Center works on these issues all across the planet, including, the issue we're talking about now, which is like a resolution to appoint guardians of the river, and that plays out in various places in various different ways. I want to also add that, since Nederland was the first community in the state of Colorado to create a Rights of Nature resolution, as you may know, the town of Ridgway has also passed one. And then just last week, the town of Grand Lake passed a resolution of Rights of Nature for the Grand Lake watershed. And we're currently working with Grand Lake as well. In addition, the town of Crested Butte is working on one. We're very likely to work with them, and the town of Lyons as well. The city of Fort Collins is also in the process of considering the Rights of Nature resolution for the past year. And then just a couple of days ago, we found out that one of the city council members for the city of Denver is actually proposing a proclamation that would establish rights of nature for the South Platte River through the city of Denver. So we're very excited about how this program is kind of growing and developing over time. The first thing I want to say is it's new, and you guys were the first, and so what we do in Nederland, what you do in Nederland is going to be kind of the template, and if not, you guys are the leaders on how we move this forward. And so you have an opportunity to be not just a leader in the state of Colorado, but somewhat of an international leader in how this kind of happens in the United States. And so, generally speaking, I'm in broad, agreement with what Alan just said. I think that one of the council members, or maybe it was, I forget which member of the SAB it was, or it was one of the council, or one of the town board members brought up the concept of, it's probably good to have people who are already engaged with the town and on a board be the quote unquote guardians, so that you avoid just a lot of the chaos around open records and et cetera, et cetera. And we're totally fine with that. If you wanted to appoint a subset of the Sustainability Advisory Board to be the guardians of the river, or just the whole Sustainability Advisory Board, that would also be fine with us. I think there's lots of opportunities in terms of how this moves forward. And so we're completely comfortable with what you decide to do there with this advisory board in terms of advising the town board, on how to move forward with the rights of nature. And I just, I'm not trying to like dodge the bullet or whatever, but it's a new thing, and it's new and it's really cool, and you guys kind of get to write the rules for how this happens in the United States of America. So don't be shy, and be aggressive, and take the reins and move it forward however you like, because it's a new thing, and it's really exciting. So with that, I would say that we're kind of deferring to you. And I think Alan did point out a few points in terms of one of the concepts that was written in the original resolution is that you would write a watershed report, basically once a year, once every 2 years, or write one initial one and then maybe update it every 2 years. And so, that's something that I think could happen, as Alan mentioned, with the assistance of the city of Boulder and Boulder County, probably in particular, just how that would play out. And then the Sustainability Advisory Board members who chose, or if the whole Sustainability Advisory Board members wanted to be, listed as guardians for the Boulder Creek watershed, that could work out too, and we could just find a path forward. So, we don't have any strict boundaries on how you do this, and we're happy to kind of defer to Alan and you all in terms of how you want to define how a guardianship model works for a watershed in the United States of America. So, this is a ground floor opportunity, and so be bold, be aggressive, and let us know how we can be helpful to you. I am done.
Okay. Rich, you were the one that suggested perhaps the whole SAB could be engaged in this, and I think that, to me, this report would be something that we would get the information from these other entities, the state, the county, and the city, perhaps have a meeting with them, and then we could, summarize that information, add what other information we might have, request those entities for more information as need be. And with Tom being our liaison on the town board, I'm sure he might have things he'd bring forward based on the ordinance they're looking at that would want to include in that reporting structure. But Rich, do you have any more ideas on that?
Thank you. Yeah, well, I have no problem with again, like the board being the guardians or subset. I think that we need to do something like that. Regarding the report, the thing that would be most important to me is that it's useful to someone, right? I mean, I would hate to just write a report for the sake of writing a report that no one would then read and then really wouldn't be of use to somebody. So I think we really would need to figure out the best way to really make it useful, to really make it have some type of impact beyond just something that goes into the record of a town board meeting or something like that. I know a little bit about river ecology from some classes I took in college. I don't think I can write a comprehensive report on the state of the river. One thought I have, in addition to consulting with our other local governments, is We do have a major research university, half an hour away. They have an environmental sciences department. They might have grad students that are eager for a project that they can put on their resume, or then that could help us with that. I know they also at Ceres, which is affiliated with CU, they have an actual river science. I don't know that it's quite a department, but they have river science people that are sort of experts on river science. And I don't know, again, if there'd be like a grad student or even an undergraduate or a group of them that might want to volunteer to help us with something like that, with coming up with some type of at least a scientific portion or an ecological portion of the report. That's all I got.
Yeah, I like those ideas. Tom, what do you think?
I think it makes sense. I want to let people know on the ordinance side, we're working with somebody in Crested Butte to get our map together, and so that we can define our watershed. We had the first fork in the road was how wide a claim we want to make, if we want, because technically water is coming from the Caribou roadside is coming into the reservoir. You might make a claim on it. After talking it through, we decided to go with something that was entirely defensible, and that's from our intake up 5 miles. So we'll have the map coming in shortly. We're working with Crested Butte on that ordinance, but on the study, we're doing something right now with CU on wildfire preparation. We're working with the graduate programs on many other things. So I'm sure we could find somebody who'd love to come up and work with us on the health of the river too. I don't think there'd be any problem at all getting a good team up here.
Good. Sounds like a lot of progress is being made.
A lot of things they care of.
Yeah.
Even though reports tend to gather dust on the shelf, wouldn't a report serve as a baseline condition as things are changing?
It would show where we were at one point in time. Yeah. It would also highlight some trouble spots, ones that we have to watch. And especially things that are within our jurisdiction. I'd really like to know about it. I'd like to have advance warning on where the trouble spots might be.
Gary, in a weird paradoxical twist, I wonder if the state statute requirement for comprehensive plans in Colorado to include a recreation and tourism section, if that would lend credence to other Colorado communities being able to claim rights of nature, because that's what people are coming here for. And it's a requirement to put it in comprehensive plans. So I wonder, even though I don't know which native chief had said, like, Colorado's beauty will be its own undoing, because people will come here and spoil it. I wonder if that couldn't lend some fire, because any municipality of a certain size that has a comprehensive plan has to include those sections. Other sections they can include, those they have to include.
Yeah, so I guess a quick response to that. I'm not aware of that, but I would say that we all know that Colorado is under an enormous number of threats. One of those is, let's face it, industrial tourism. And so, and Netherlands is just a fascinating place, as we all know. When I first came here, of course, wasn't born either. When I first came here 40 years ago, I could drive up to the Hesse Trailhead on a summer day and park my car, and there were 3 cars, and go for a glorious, wonderful hike, come down, maybe see 1 or 2 people, and get in my car and drive back to Boulder. And of course, as we all know very, very well, you can't do that anymore, ever, even on a cold winter day, really, when there's 2 feet of fresh snow on the ground. So it's a fascinating phenomenon that's happened. And I would just say that, it's an opportunity for the community to just, grasp any tool we can to try to tell the story the way that we want to tell it, and focus on the issues that we want to use. And I just, go back to, I think, some of the things that Rich brought up. Consider being aspirational with the report. Like, what do you want to see happen? What changes do you want to see? One of the things that I've talked to Alan about is like, well, maybe the Boulder County should have a bus system that has a park and ride down at the county, justice center, and instead of people, because as you know, on any summer day, which is going to happen, tomorrow and the next day and the next day in Nederland, the cars is just going to have traffic jams all the way through town, and so. Maybe it just needs to be very aggressive and more of an expansive view of like how you protect the watershed. And so I see it as an opportunity to think about, what can happen in the town of Nederland to be a leader in this issue in the state of Colorado. And so, anything you guys can think of, any aspirations you have, I think it's an opportunity to tell a story. And, people will listen because it's the first time it's going to happen.
I had something I want to throw out there that I've been mulling. Another board member and I have been kicking around the concept of a conservation and recreation easement, or not easement, but some sort of group that goes along the peak to peak, all the way from Black Hawk to Estes Park. This focused on issues that we all have as communities, and that protects our recreational areas, and that gives us some resilience that crosses county lines. It seems to me, as we negotiate east-west with Boulder, that we should have a political counterweight that represents our interests and closer to our interests. And I'm starting to talk with mayors across other communities along the peak to peak about what that might look like. So it's very early. I haven't heard anybody say that's crazy, let's not do it. But we have a lot more in common, I think, north-south than we do east-west.
What about the IMA, Tom?
Say again?
What about the IMA, the Intermountain Alliance?
That is kind of my core. That's where I think that's probably the place to nurture it.
If we could get more elected officials involved,
yeah,
that would be fantastic. That was the point of it. It actually started as the Mountain Mayors Forum, but Ward's mayor wouldn't come. So
yeah,
and it was by a couple ladies in Ward who were council members. And in 2010, I mentioned the word Intermountain Alliance, and they said, "Oh, we like that. Can we have that?" And I gave them the name. Are less so focused on recreation, but more focused on connection, especially, I mean, it sort of arose out of the ashes of the 4 Mile Fire.
Yeah. But we're going a lot more into health and human services with that group these days. I talk with Central City, I talk with Black Hawk, I talk with the Estes Park people, and I think we could, I think that's a good home to keep this thing moving along. IMA.
Erica, do you have any suggestions or ideas?
Basically, I love everything that I'm hearing. I'm like, yes, yes, yes on everything Gary's talking about. But I'm trying to be realistic about how this would actually get moved through into a formative framework. And I'm just the kind of person who kind of needs to see a workable model. And I just don't see that yet. But if we backed up just to the report part, I have a lot of experience with this kind of stuff, and they're not that hard to put together when you have a lot of research already done. You have a lot of data sitting out there. Then your report writing is kind of easy. You just find the data and pull it together. And I love the idea that Tom mentioned about CU I guess Rich mentioned that too. What a great idea. And I've been working with those students on this wildfire prevention. I did an interview with them, and then they did one with me, and then I did one with them because I wanted to know, what they were doing and how they were working. I went to the workshop. It was very professionally done. Little Nederland is pulling off this fantastic stuff all the time. And so, when Gary talks about thinking big, I'm like, yeah, we could do that. But I need to be thinking about how it could actually be implemented. I don't see that yet. So I'll just say that. But a report, I mean, that's sort of an obvious great start. And so I think we need a report. I looked over the list, that's in the draft. It's really basic stuff: water quality, wildlife habitat, corridors, the kind of stuff that's so basic. I mean, it's like we have to do the report anyway. It seems to me just be responsible about our watershed. So that's kind of where I'm thinking right now. I could see the report, but even that's an actionable thing that will take some real work. Somebody's going to have to step up and be in charge of that. If there's an outreach to CU students or whatever, somebody needs to do that, and it has to be monitored with them. Then there'd be the turnaround time if students are going to do it. I don't see how we'd be even talking next semester. I'm kind of familiar with CU, and oh gosh, it'd be the spring. I'm just guessing at best, or next summer. So I don't want to, be raining anybody's parade. I'm right there with Gary on everything he said and everybody else. It's beautiful. Let's do it. Yes, but it's going to be longer term. And I think we need to get our ducks in a row. So I'll stop there. This is great, though. Thank you.
I'd love to just jump in for a second unless someone else has something to say. So I just linked the Boulder Watershed Collective in the chat. A few folks have already mentioned the research that's happening in collaboration with CU and the Boulder Watershed Collective right now. They presented at the last BOT meeting. And there is a lot of opportunity. So if you look at their website, they have a lot of money and they have a lot of resources, and they're already focused on collaboration and intersectionality. And it feels like an alliance may be a better use of our time versus a report. Of course, like things need to be documented, right? Even just within the SAB board. As new folks come in, sometimes there's things that are lost, and obviously lots of things gained. But some of the previous projects and ambitions, you lose some of the details. And so it's important to document and to have that kind of written history of an organization, and especially of a watershed, if we're going to take it as far as like a historical perspective, right? Obviously, there's many other ways to read the history of the landscape than just written word. But I just wonder if maybe a symposium or a collaborative or an alliance, or we ask an organization that's already established and already focused on these things and already engaged with experts to kind of help us with this process, it might be a little bit more sustainable as far as Nederland and this group. We've talked about an Earth Day event for a decade. Melody, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been around, it's been years and years. And I wonder if we could think about doing like a watershed update and making that more of like an intentional piece of what we do as a board, and kind of the town's, just the town kind of taking more of an active stance on like, where is our watershed today? Where has it been? Where do we want it to go? And getting experts on board with us to help us with that information. Some ideas.
Just a quick response from me too. We're familiar with the Boulder Watershed Collective, and we're happy and delighted to support any kind of collaboration with them. And if you want to, let's say, tweak or refine or clarify the original resolution that the Board of Trustees passed, you know, we're fine with that too. You know, our goal is to like find a better way to protect the watershed and increase the you know, conversation in the community about how nature has a right to exist and how we need to include that in decision making. And so we didn't see the original resolution as like you know, a strict guideline, or even the you know, the concept proposed that Alan had brought forward as very strict either. So you know, there's wonderful opportunities here for collaboration, and you know, we're open to anything and supporting and endorsing that.
I do like that idea of collaborating with the collective. Makes a lot of sense. Tom, how did your conversation with them go? Is the BOT going to be working with the Boulder Watershed Collective? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I personally am. I'm the only one that put his hand up when it came to watershed issues. I think the rest of the board wanted to put it off for more urgent issues, so I took it on myself.
Well, I still like the idea of the entire SAB being the guardians. And
Yeah, I got no problems with that.
together, collaboratively, perhaps with the Watershed Collective and CU, and trying to move forward on this.
Yeah, I'll talk with Maya and see how we can work more tightly with them going forward. I've just known her for a month, and since they came up to talk to us.
I don't want to throw out anything crazy, but I am
Come on,
going to.
let's hear it.
What if the entire town of Nederland is the guardians and we're the leaders within that conversation? You know, what if we give onus to everyone and we say, you know, this is our landscape. This is our home. I mean, can we do that, Gary?
Gary?
I don't know if Gary has an opinion, but I really like that idea. I think that we could restructure this idea of a guardian board and a report and kind of funnel it instead into a process where citizens can report what they see, and then those reports come before the SAB, and the SAB can then say, what are we going to do? You know, give the citizens like a funnel through this resolution and a process of how to do it. But ultimately make it that any citizen in Nederland can designate themselves as a guardian of the watershed.
Well, I do think you can kind of make the argument that when we passed the resolution, we were saying that the town was adopting rights of nature, that we were speaking for the town, and the town felt that the rights of nature were important. So I think that is kind of implied by a BOT resolution to some degree.
Well, you know, one thing I would be concerned about of having like every resident of the town be sort of designated en masse by the board as these guardians is one, there are probably some residents of the town that some of us can even think of that, well, to put, well, not to put too fine a point on it, are kind of loudmouths. And I'm not really sure that we would all want them to sort of speak out as the quote unquote guardian of the river as appointed by the town. Second of all, I just wonder if that is sort of an official position established by the town in this ordinance, if by making everybody a guardian, we are creating a headache under Cora, open meetings. If like 3 residents of the town get together to discuss it, I think that it's the potential for, and the potential for, malicious actors to create that on purpose to create problems for the town. I think is a problem. So I just think that we would really have to think really hard about that and get legal advice on it, I would think, before we did that.
Yeah, that's a legitimate concern.
Cynthia?
What about SAB partnering with Wild Bear to be the guardians?
Giving youth a lens, Cynthia? You're saying like these young kind of education students of the land. I like that idea.
Yeah, and this is Wild Bear's wheelhouse. I mean, what they do and what they're all about. And maybe also there could be an opportunity with like the Youth Opportunity Advisory Board or something like that. Kind of connecting that all the way around.
One idea I put forward is that, the SAB be the primary guardians. And then we reach out to organizations like Wild Bear and the Youth Advisory and see if they would like to collaborate with us on it. Otherwise, I think this could take longer than we would like, perhaps, to try to do all the heavy lifting to get all this together. But I guess I'd just like to see what does the SAB think in general about the idea that SAB is, we are the guardian, and then we're going to work with entities like the Watershed Coalition, Wild Bear, Youth Advisory, maybe even Nederland Junior High and High School to recruit people who would like to participate or collaborate.
Max, go for it.
Hi, I'm not sure if people who are not currently members of the board are allowed to speak. But I currently work at Wild Bear, so I just wanted to ask, because I just have familiarity with the program, if they were to become, if they were to take on ownership of the Watershed Collective, like what does that mean for who takes on ownership? And if it's the kids, I know there's the majority of the kids are there like quite temporarily, so there wouldn't be a huge continuity of people or kids overseeing a Watershed Collective. But I don't know, perhaps I'm thinking about it incorrectly, but that was just my first impression.
No, I think you're correct, Max, that when I think about Wild Bear, I think it as a resource to us that's ideally available for projects that we first worked out with Wild Bear themselves wanting to do. And so we've participated in Wild Bear projects before that Wild Bear was putting on. And so maybe there's a way to fit in with them there. But that was when I heard Wild Bear, I was thinking much more project oriented. And I'll just say that it seems obvious that to me that SAB needs to be the home of the guardianship, if you want to put it that way. In other words, we need to be taking responsibility at some bottom line. It has to be us. Who else is it going to be? There is no one else. So, but then the language, I was frankly intimidated by the draft language just because of all the work I see that would need to be done to satisfy that. If we are going to say, yes, we are going to be the guardian SAB, and we are going to do A, B, C, and D spelled out in that draft. Wow, that's just a huge amount of work. I've done this kind of work. It's like a project in itself just to put it together. So we're smart enough to understand this sitting here and know what we'd be getting into. I really would like us to see us pass a resolution, though, making us officially the guardian, so to speak, for the town of Nederland. That's obviously what we're doing. So that part I'm ready to go on. but it's all the details that scare me underneath signing on as guardian.
Larry, I appreciate you saying that. Just to play devil's advocate, what about, ProSab is changing parks and trails in Nederland right now. And they're doing much more like tangible projects on the ground, even closer to the stream running into Barker. So, I wonder if like sharing this responsibility could have more impact as far as like onus of protecting these landscapes in the watershed. And I just was thinking as you're talking, like maybe we can't make all the residents, like I appreciate what you brought up, Rich, but maybe we can make all the boards because we're already under the same kind of requirements as far as sunshine law and Cora. And we say like, last night we were talking about the solar ordinance with the planning commission, solar panels are related to the watershed. And that's the planning commission's wheelhouse as far as codes and requirements. So I don't know if we need to think about it so linear as far as responsibility. I don't know what you think about that, Larry.
Oh, I agree with what you just said. I totally do. If ProSab could take this on, I mean, that's a big, bold step, but oh, that'd be so huge. So yeah, I agree with what you said, though.
Well, it seems to me that's a logical idea to do at some point in the future. But I think we should take ownership and then recruit other people that might want to collaborate with us. And ProSab is certainly a likely candidate among the other people. But getting back to what Larry's concerns were, when I looked at that language, I have the same impression. It's a heck of a lot of work, and it's a lot of gathering of data information that goes beyond the scope of our skill set. And that's why I suggested at the outset that we rely on the state and the county and Maya with the city to help us gather that data and give us a snapshot of what they see. What are the water quality issues? What do the latest tests say? What's the stream flow look like, etc. They have that data. It's their job to gather that data. And we're just asking them to report it to us so we can include it in our report. And then, I think it's a good concern, like, as Rich said, we don't want just to put something together that goes on a shelf and that's the end of it. It should be a springboard. And the DOT is already working on a watershed ordinance. So it's data we need to gather anyway. And it's something we can share with the community. And we see what evolves from that information in terms of tasks, opportunities, etc. So I just see, us being a information gathering team that provides the community with information, and also we become an entity that requests information from the regulatory bodies, because otherwise we're in the dark. I think we discovered the hard way that nobody's going to tell us anything unless we ask them for information about what's happening in our neck of the woods. We had no information about what was going on at the mine, and the mine is saying they want to be collaborative partners with us. That's great. But if there are three entities that regulate industrial and commercial activity, we should be in the loop on the reports and information they're receiving. And this is a great way to gather that information with this Rights of Nature initiative.
I
Well,
think
uh,
I can
I'm
see
sorry,
it.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think I can see it every which way, and so I'm having a hard time determining like what is the best route to pursue. I do see the value of appointing a separate person or two people or three people and having them be the ones that are designated to take on the information and compile the report. I think the downfall there is, can we really get somebody who wants to run for that position and take on this work and do it? And so that's why I also see the value of it being held by the SAB for sure. And I also love the idea of it being maybe one member of SAB and one member of ProSAB and maybe somebody that we would consider an expert. And so from term to term, that might be a grad student, or maybe somebody like Rhea wants to volunteer, or something like that. So I can see it playing out in all these different ways and all of them being good. And so I'm just not sure what the best one is. But the other thing I'll say is I do think that every year or every 2 years might be too much. And so I would consider something like every 5 years, or upon it, a severe impact to the watershed. So like if there is something emergent that does happen, the Guardians would be called upon to then produce a report on that. But other than major changes, they would report every 5 years or something, or maybe however long their term is, that's how long the report is, every 3 years. So that's my input.
I guess I'm wondering if Alan could be bold enough to frame something for us to give a nod to go forward on, some sort of language. I don't know what you want to call it, but just something that we can like, sort of express support, but not overcommit. I mean, does anything pop up for you, Alan? If you know, if you want to offer the whole draft, you could. It's just that I would be remiss. I would be wondering whether I could support it. I mean, whereas if we were thinking about just the report, say, I love the idea of Rhea, by the way, that geologist she was fabulous from Eldora, working with Eldora. Wow, what if she could come on to help us? Geez, what a brilliant idea. Thank you, Melody. My gosh. So we have a talent pool here, but somebody's going to have to carry the ball on this going forward. I mean, organizationally, it's going to be like a little project of like pulling strings together. And so, but Alan, I mean, first of all, I guess, so I have two questions for Alan. One is, would you be willing to be that person? I know you're busy, but it's like, could you be like the front end organizer, so to speak, for SAB on this? I guess for a report, if that's what we're talking about. And then two, it's like, can you frame something for us? And you don't have to, but it'd be how great it would be if we had a little resolution of our own, mini resolution right now on this that we could, vote on, I guess. Is there anything that pops up to you? I guess, or anybody else? I'm just asking Alan, but Tom, anybody? Does anybody have some language?
Yeah, I mean, I would propose, as I've said, that maybe we pass something that says SAB is, we are, the whole board, we're the guardians, and that we will work collaboratively with the appropriate regulatory agencies who monitor the watershed, as well as reaching out to ProSab, Watershed Collective, et cetera, and continue to work with Gary Walker's organization. So that's something that I would propose. Whether, and when that results in a report, I think we want to get an assessment annually from those regulatory agencies. So we're basically the place that they send the information. So that's my idea. So, but I think, what I would propose is that we as an organization agree to be the depository of that information from the regulatory agencies and collaborators. And I'd be happy to coordinate that as needed. But as I said, I don't think we have the expertise or the time or the energy to gather that data. We do have people who are gathering that data, who have the expertise, and it's their jobs. And if there's overlap with ProSab and with Wild Bear, and we can get some enthusiasm from young people, that would be wonderful, So that's my thought. And and as Tom mentioned, and we already have the BOT working on a watershed ordinance that's within our bailiwick. So there are other complementary activities taking place beyond our purview that will feed into this. So if you want me to make that a motion, that we be the depository of information from the regulatory agencies, and we request that information on an annual basis so that the SAB can help to assess the state of the watershed, period. That's what I'm proposing. I make that, that's a motion. Anybody want to second it?
I can read that back if you like. I think I got it. I think I should read it back.
Sure.
SAB will serve as the Netherlands Watershed Guardians and will work with other appropriate boards as necessary.
And regulatory agencies.
And regulatory agencies. Thank you. And will serve as a depository for the information collected, and will request, help me out here, and will request this information be updated annually. That's what I actually have.
Yes.
Okay.
That I think pretty much captures it.
Can I propose a slight amendment
Please.
to that? I wouldn't want to, not that I think it would in reality limit us, but I wouldn't limit us to regulatory agencies. There could be other governmental agencies that could be very valuable that don't have a regulatory function. So
Yeah.
I would just say governmental agencies.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. I mean, we might get information from environmental organizations like Gary's organization or the Sierra Club or
Then I would say,
yeah,
governmental and non-governmental organizations. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Good
Excellent.
suggestion, Rich. Thank you. Melody, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Erica, what do you think?
I definitely agree with what Larry shared earlier, that a report just sounds like a lot of work. And so I think what you've suggested, Alan, sounds doable, and it sounds like it'll still be very valuable and help us keep up with where the watershed is and have a record of that information and changes over time. So it sounds very appropriate, and it sounds like it's realistic, and it's not a big lift for SAB. What do others think?
Okay, well, I propose that what Larry drafted, the motion, I'm putting that forward as a motion. Does anybody second it?
I'll second it.
Melody, should we have a vote?
Yes. Okay, so we'll start with Rich.
Yes.
Vote yes.
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Do we have any other staff members here?
We do not. Larry.
We do?
We don't. It's just the four of you.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Or is a quorum, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
So this is really exciting.
Yeah, so what are the next steps as far as what we need to do with this? Do we want to come back to the next SAB meeting, kind of brainstorm what our partners are going to, how we're going to start on this report, or do we want to try to get this on a BOT agenda, like as amended with this designation of the guardianship body, and kind of move forward from there?
Yeah, I think we should run it by Tom and see if he'd like to take it forward to the BOT right now, and then bring it back to the board for the next steps. I'm going to be out of town for the next meeting, so maybe September would be a better target.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree that it's probably
I'll
going to be a bit before we
I'll
can get on
be-
the agenda.
I'll be in Norway and I won't necessarily have any internet contact, so.
Okay. So do we want to talk about this again at the next SAB meeting, or do we not want to have it on the agenda until it goes before the BOT?
Well, maybe since we just drafted it tonight, we should bring it back to us in September, and then see if there's any more massaging we want to do before we go to BOT, and get Tom's input, since he is our liaison in the meantime. And we could send what Larry drafted to him for his opinion, and then go from there. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Does anybody else that's not on the SAB board have any comments they want to make on this rights of nature discussion before we move on? So, hearing nothing, we will move on to U.S. solar options. I don't know if Erica, you want to give an introduction or just have Tim go?
Yeah, so I will give a quick intro. So we are lucky to have Tim here tonight. Hopefully, well, we know this is not going to be the last time that we see Tim at a SAB meeting. Tim is based in Denver, and he is responsible for residential community solar garden subscriptions for U.S. Solar. So I met Tim the first time this week, and Tim is going to be working really closely with us as we build our residential community solar garden subscription campaign for Nederland. The plan is to launch September 1st, and we're going to talk about some options and some things we need SAB feedback on. But I'd like to first just hand it over to Tim so he can introduce himself and we can all get to know him a bit more. So take it away, Tim.
Thank you, Erica. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone allowing me to jump on and talk a little bit about this and introduce myself. So, as Erica mentioned, U.S. Solar, we are partnering with Nederland to, help meet sustainability goals. And my area specifically, it revolves around the residential side of that. In our conversation the other day, we talked about some goals, some interactive ways to get involved with the community. My role in this would essentially be to help facilitate getting residential members of Nederland and eventually surrounding areas as well involved in the subscription. To give a little clarity around community solar, I don't know how familiar all of you are or are not with it. So it is simply, we partner with Excel to build large solar gardens that then, we have different channels: commercial, agricultural, low and middle income, and residential, which is my area. And we allow anyone that has an Excel electricity account to subscribe to utilize a portion of our garden to help offset all of their electrical usage. This is, geared towards allowing you guys to hit some of those sustainability goals that you have. As a partner, when we build a partnership, we work with our partner in creating marketing materials, a rollout plan, an engagement plan, and then the active participation of helping residents get enrolled in the program. The benefit to them, we will put together some added bonuses to the normal structure. The normal structure is that there's a guaranteed 5% discount on what's called the bill credit rate, which is what Excel credits each subscriber on their bill and then pays us for their subscription. So along with offsetting all of their electrical usage with solar, they are now going to have a guaranteed savings on their bill as well. And then we build out, like I said, some added incentives in the way of sign-up bonuses and or donations. And we can get into specifics of that as we build the program out. But that is what my role in this is, to help you guys reach those goals and work together in that process.
Thanks, Tim. So,
any questions, any additional information or detail I can provide?
Tim, I'm thinking maybe we'll jump into the donation question, and then there might be some questions that come up in that process. That would be great if you could help answer.
Absolutely.
So the next piece on the agenda is the way that this community solar garden subscription is set up is you've got this 5% bill credit. And in addition to that, there's a $100 Amazon e-gift card that will be emailed to folks at a certain period after they sign up. So there's a $100 bonus to sign up. And then on top of that, US Solar is going to give Nederland a $50 donation or kickback per subscription. And initially with this conversation with the COSA Clean Energy Solutions Summit, we talked about possibly building a solar array, right? Because the goal was that town would have something in town that was a part of this community solar garden, ideally. I mean, ideally, we wanted the whole thing based in Nederland. It just is not realistic for lots of reasons. Land being one of them, cost based on location, etc. So in the agenda, we have a few different options that we've discussed. We talked on Monday, and Chris Larson, who's unfortunately not here tonight, he has been actively participating in this conversation, and we talked back and forth about different options, and we had talked about this donation piece. We could have potentially 3 different donation options, see if we could have folks, when they sign up, they could decide, I want to donate $50 to the town. I want to donate $50 to the town police department. I want to donate $50 to to Wild Bear. I want to do a solar array. We can decide really what we want these donations to look like, or we look at doing something else. Maybe a $50 kickback to, let's say, the food pantry, or folks get a gift card to some shops in Nederland. So we're supporting local shops like Ace or B&F or the co-op or things like that. So there's lots of different options. And so we wanted to bring it to you all and see kind of what you think would be the best project to connect with this, the subscription relationship that we have with US Solar. The plan is to launch on September 1st We would ideally like to leave this meeting tonight with a solid plan as far as we want to do donations, we want to do donations to a solar array, donations to Wild Bear, donations to the food pantry. Those will be our 3 options, or we just say 1. So if we do 300 subscriptions, $50 a pop, we're looking at $15,000, which could be really helpful for a solar array. If we cut that into, 3 sums of money, that may not be enough to actually get solar and to really support that financially. So there's some things to think about. This is important to solidify pretty quickly because we want to get this on the MOU and ideally have an updated MOU tomorrow that'll be signed by the BOT on either Monday or Tuesday this coming week, so that we can really kind of have that agreement signed with US Solar, and then we can really hit the ground running with a campaign and some of the details it would take for this subscription piece. So I would love to open it up to you all. What do you think? What other ideas would you like to suggest? Things that you're excited about now, you'd like to even, try to motivate the group to lean towards?
Erica, I want to add one more thing to that. We want the feedback on this. We want it to be, the way I want to look at it is what's going to be the most impactful is, providing choice to people to where the money's going to go. Does that have more impact, or picking one specific entity have more impact? And if we do decide to make it open up to several options, we do want to make it manageable. So it's not a million different options. Maybe we pick 2 or 3. So I think those are the kind of thoughts we were having in our conversation Mondays. What will make sense, what's impactful, but still manageable at the same time.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for adding that. One thing just to clarify. So we talked about, what's going to motivate people to participate in this community solar garden subscription and campaign. And one of the big things is it's a discount. We get the $100 gift card and you get a 5% savings for 20 years. That's huge. Currently, Excel doesn't offer that with their wind source, like premium program. Even Renewable Connect, that was only you were supposed to come out even with a 10-year contract. So that's the first incentive. But then maybe we could have this donation project as a second incentive of, well, yeah, I'm going to sign up because it helps our food pantry. It helps build this solar array. Whatever we decide that project is going to be, it'd be awesome if it was this double impact.
I think it's a really great program, and I really want to thank Tim and US Solar for the incentives built in. It's really exciting. I do think, given what we went through with our previous solar program, Eric and I have had this conversation. I was stunned when we had a very successful program where, the board of trustees, we came up with some money, and then we use it as a rebate for people who are willing to put solar panels on their roofs. And I thought it was a real win-win situation, and we got a bunch of people signed up, and we got a bunch of solar panels put on. And then we had some people say it was basically an elitist program where we were just putting money in rich people's pockets that didn't really need it in the first place. So, I've heard this elsewhere at the national and state level too, when people object to renewable energy. So I think that making sure that those $50 donations make a meaningful impact, and we can't get that criticism, is important. So if it goes to the food pantry or Wild Bear or some charitable purpose, then we don't face that potential criticism. And the thing we tried to do for the whole 5 years I was on the board of trustees was, can we somehow provide low-income people with low-cost solar? And we did get involved in one county program, but it was really hard to roll it out to low-income people and get enough people to participate, even when it was free, believe it or not. It's hard to connect the dots. So that's just my input, is that we don't want to be perceived as elitist. And I do think there's a great deal of potential for subsidizing the right things in Nederland while we roll this out.
Yeah, one thing I would say on that is the one of the main purposes behind the Community Solar Garden Act was to make renewable energy accessible to a much broader spectrum of people. The fact that there is zero upfront cost, it does not, does not cost any money to get involved in the program, and there are guaranteed savings. And it does not just simply apply to homeowners. You can be a renter. It is not tied to the home, it's tied to the account. So the fact that if you are an Excel customer, you can participate. So it's not, it opens it to a much broader, wider base of people, which I think helps offset some of that argument of, you might have to have a lot of money to, invest up front to put solar panels on your roof. This is a completely different type of program that, in my personal opinion, it avoids many of the sort of negative views of renewable energy. And hopefully that is the message we can get across with both the savings as well as where we are as a company and as a partnership looking to put money to on the donation side of things.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, Tim, I want to thank you for saying that. And I actually want to ask you about Energy Outreach Colorado. I noticed in the little, I guess it was Erica's list of possibilities, but it seemed to reference that US Solar has a policy of making a donation to EOC, but maybe I misread that, or I'm just wondering, does US Solar have some sort of policy regarding EOC and how, or anything at all? Because, they're doing a huge job.
Yeah.
They're doing a gigantic administrative task, and they're doing it for the town of Nederland.
Yeah.
So
as I mentioned at the beginning, the sort of the 4 different channels of this program, commercial, agricultural, residential, and the 4th component is low and middle income. And we work specifically with Energy Outreach Colorado in that. In our bids to Excel, when we won all these contracts, there was a very specific amount of low and middle income built into the program that is managed directly by EOC. I can't speak to the exact details of how much we are donating of our gardens to EOC to then work directly with low and middle income. We know that there is a specified amount of megawatts going to that program. I can't speak to the exact details, to be honest, but as far as the donation part, when we first started talking about putting partnerships together, we were going to target EOC as the organization that we would donate to. But as we've gotten into more and more conversations, we started thinking, let's create options, because if we're working with a town or a specific nonprofit, it may be more impactful for them to be able to choose, or the donation to go directly to that specific nonprofit. So we didn't want to limit the opportunity of creating a better program if there were better partners to donate to.
Thank you.
Sure.
Larry, just to piggyback off that, I definitely think Energy Outreach Colorado would be a very appropriate donation or entity for this sum to go to. But I myself thought about perhaps there'd be greater impact in Nederland if we did go directly to a nonprofit like Wild Bear or the Food Pantry, or even a solar array that could reduce taxpayer money spent on electricity. So Energy Outreach Colorado is, another kind of piece of this US solar conversation, as we are going to work with them to get some subscribers for the LMI population, which is actually an amazing opportunity for a 20-year contract if you can income qualify. But I just don't think if we donated to them, I don't know how much of that would actually go to Nederland residents or even Boulder County.
and I can't speak to Netherlands specifically. Obviously, I live there, but I did live in a small mountain community for a few years, and I know that they tend to be pretty tight knit. And I think if your local residents knew it was going to your food pantry or Wild Bear or something that is something that ingrained into your community, I think that talking about the impact and feeling like this isn't some elitist program. It's going somewhere where we don't really know. That's my personal thought, is that, and that's why we came up with some of those suggestions in our call Monday, is that idea of the local impact, the local feel of having that, this is part of this program is designed specifically for you guys, for this community, to benefit from us partnering together. But I mean, we're open to different ideas. We just thought that would be pretty impactful.
Something else to add to this is that the MOU that we are going to sign hopefully next week with US Solar is allowing us 500 subscriptions. When I crunch some numbers, we can talk about that later. But US Solar is willing to give all of the Netherlands zip code donations to this project. So that is going to be a larger sum. So that's about $25,000 if we do have the 500 subscriptions within the zip code. So it will be likely kind of a sign up link or some kind of code that we'll ask people to use when they register with US Solar, and then we can track that for everyone within the zip code boundary.
Yeah, specifically, we create a co-branded sign up link. So it would be US Solar, Town Netherlands specific, and then the process that they walk through it pretty easily. We are, as building out partnerships, we are also willing to do some webinars or in-person event. Like if you guys have an in-person meeting, I would attend, help answer questions, help people get enrolled, whatever the best way to communicate all of this information to the community, we are willing to put into effect and putting our partnership together. Cynthia, yeah, I was gonna say, that's your hand. Yeah.
I live in a ward which is about 12 miles from Netherland. I use WindSource. Totally want to sign up for this.
Yes, you can.
Don't know.
You can do. You can
do. I'm down. Secondarily, so Wild Bear right now is in a capital campaign. We're in building permitting, so this is really exciting. This is a 25-year dream of Jill Dreves to have the nature center. This will be the highest in altitude nature center in the country and the only one in Boulder County. So it is a big damn deal, and she's been working on it. They're in this fundraising campaign. They got a really sweetheart deal from the town on some huge fee waivers. But I know they are trying to raise money. And while, in the millions they have to raise, like 5 million, 7,500 or 15,000, isn't much, but it's significant at the same time. And with the Wild Bear, you have an opportunity to work with folks who are going to be educating people. They could have a rights of nature display. They could have, solar and those kind of things, possibly. I mean, Max can comment on that, I'm sure. And the food pantry right now is also trying to raise money for their new building, which they went through the planning commission last night. They got their unanimous support, and it would be going to the board of trustees for the location there in the east parking lot on the south side that's underutilized. And I think that, depending on whether they get the Worthy Cause grant, they may be fully funded for the money that they need. But if they don't get it, then I know they're looking for grants and donations and things like that.
That's good to know. Thank you for that information. Max, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, first I just wanted to second everything that Cynthia said. I think that was really great and some really good insights about Wild Bear. But I was also just thinking about how to market joining a community solar garden to low income or lower middle income households. And I think it's important to consider why these households don't show a lot of interest in projects such as renewable energy, even though a lot of people really understand that it's important. And it's at least to me, in my opinion, it's because of it's a bandwidth problem. A lot of families don't believe that they're in a position where they can consider, you know, renewable energy as an important issue to factor into their budget. And so relating that back to Wild Bear, I think I am biased, but you know, childcare costs are a huge portion of the budget for a lot of low income families, and Wild Bear offers scholarships to I think 46% of their attendees. And so I think that there's this extra incentive layered in when you say, oh, we will give a donation. If you sign up for this, we will give a donation to Wild Bear, and that will help defray your childcare costs. Because, you know, something like a 5% savings on your electricity bill plus, you know, in some way, reducing your childcare costs goes a very long way.
Max, Cynthia, I super appreciate you all bringing up, you know, these very worthy nonprofits. I wonder, I don't know if we have to choose. We could do both Wild Bear and the food pantry, and people could decide where they want their donation to go. So I don't know if we have to have that conversation of which is more worthy. But I think it would be helpful to say, yes, we want to do a donation, and yes, we want it to go either to Wild Bear or the food pantry. And then we'll update the MOU tomorrow. So just, I'd love to hear like what others are thinking as far as, does this donation piece feel right? Do these nonprofits feel appropriate? Does it feel like this will help the impact and enlisting folks ultimately to sign up for renewable energy and improve, you know, some of these nonprofits' capacity in our community? Cynthia?
I have an idea. So beyond the social media campaign, one thing that we've seen that is very effective in the town are townwide surveys that the town staff are putting out. And we just put one out for the Keeping Animals Subcommittee at the end of last week, maybe like Thursday. We have 93 responses. We did one for parking and also on the building department. And they are very actively getting used. So it might be a cool thing to do a survey through the town that talks about community solar garden. Would you be interested in participating? Do you have, you know, like, you know, specific survey questions, say like 5. And then in the end, you know, would you like your donation to go to, you know, would you prefer the donation to go to Wild Bear or Food Pantry or both, or, you know, something like that. So it would be a way of being able to get a lot of public feedback and at the same time getting that buzz in the air for community solar gardens for folks. Obviously, some people have solar on their roof. They may not be interested, but for those, especially renters, during all the years that I was a renter, I would have been so excited. I signed up for WindSource the minute I could. And if there's a savings for it, that would really, really help families. And I like Max's idea about trying to help families too, because hitting that low middle income piece is really important as costs have just gotten bananas up in the mountains and all around.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Cynthia. We have done some energy surveys in the past. We really need an answer tonight as far as where this donation piece is going to go. So I think it might be relevant for a campaign and campaign details moving forward. But this MOU's kind of been held up a little bit already. And so if we can't do it tonight, that's great. If we can, I think it'll help our campaign ultimately really hit the ground running September 1st.
Could I just ask a clarifying question, kind of, if somebody knows, but somebody mentioned the police department earlier, along with these other potential recipients. And we're not talking about much money anyway. So, you know, to me, it's like if we divide it even in 2, we're already slicing a small pie. But the message that I think it would send out is really important. And when I think about marketing, it's like there are some people who are going to want that money if they know they're going to want it to go to the police department. I just know there are, and that's what they're going to want. And we want those people to be our subscribers. So, you know, it's like, join us. So And I love the police department. So, but I'm also thinking, you know, they're getting lots of funding already. That's my background, I thought. So, but somebody mentioned the police department, so I'm just wondering, I don't know if that person is here or remembers, but do they need money? And if so, I mean, should we think about them too? And I don't want to drag this on any further, so I apologize for that. But I don't know. It's like I volunteer for the food pantry, and you know, and I love wild bear, so I'm already there. I mean, for those two, and so if it's me that the campaign is trying to get, if we care about this last piece of the message, I'm already there. Well, what about those people who actually care about the police department? And so I'm just sort of putting that out there quickly. You know, it's like, but I'm just wondering, do they have a lot of funding? I mean, I'm assuming they do, the police department.
Necessarily. And, you know, the police departments, I mean, they're really at a crossroads, Larry. Just to be brief, I know you guys have a lot of stuff on your agenda. You know, and whether they're going to keep the department or work with BOCO or completely contract with BOCO. And I would only say that, you know, if say, hey, this donation goes to the police department and then they dissolve the department, if that, you know, would happen, is that going to leave people feeling like their donation is, you know, going to a good place? And I'm not trying to be negative or anything like that. I mean, it's, you know, you can't rebuild it once you lose it. So it is a concern of a lot of people. And Alan probably knows a lot more about that.
I believe it was Eric at the beginning, because that was one of I think the three that we really brought up the most in our meeting Monday were the police department, wild bear, and the food pantry. And for both management's sake, and then also, you know, Larry, you mentioned splitting the pie. Once you start dividing it up, it becomes a much smaller amount of money. And I don't think we'd want to go beyond three. And even three feels like it's been split up pretty far. You know, in listening to what you guys are saying, being an outsider, I think that wild bear and the food pantry, having an option between two, those would feel like, if, as an impartial person who's just listening to you guys and watching, those two feel like they have some value and some weight and some feeling of impact for local residents. So listening to you guys, those are the two that I would say, if we hone in on, that's what I'm hearing from. It sounds like that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I would concur that, and the reason is the food pantry and wild bear are nonprofits. The police department is a governmental organization that gets funding through tax dollars. And I do know they're in a crossroads crisis situation once again. But I do think the food pantry and the wild bear, to me, are the best choices because they're nonprofits.
Yeah, I mentioned the police department. If you all are not aware of what's happening with the police department, it's worth watching the last BOT meeting. The police department is in a really tough situation again, as far as deciding if they want to outsource to Boulder County or if they want to keep the local police department afloat. And there's some talk about restructuring taxes and really trying to find enough money to keep it internal, and to keep the Ned Police Department going. But that's a much more complicated conversation. And Larry, I maybe shouldn't have mentioned that, but I think it is relevant given what's going on in the town right now. But it was asked at the last BOT meeting if people could donate or volunteer to the police department because of its financial challenges right now. And the answer was there wasn't an avenue to do that. If we wanted to donate to something like the police department, I would hope that we'd be able to find a way to do that. But I think there's much easier avenues to donate to the nonprofits we've already discussed, if that helps. But if you aren't familiar with what's going on, it's definitely worth going back and watching that meeting because there's a lot of important numbers that are shared.
Well, based on what I'm hearing, I'm willing to offer a motion that we choose Wild Bear and the Food Pantry as the two recipients of U.S. Solar's generous donation, and that we move forward. And I don't know what other language, Erica, we would need in a motion to make it full, but I guess I do want to offer that we're saying we want these two nonprofits, local nonprofits, to benefit.
I second that motion.
Okay, Alan seconds it. All right, I'll call a vote. Rich,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and me, yes, definitely. The first thing that came to my mind was these two groups and how am I going to decide between them. So I think this is great, and I think these organizations will also be very happy to hear that they're gonna receive some good chunks of a donation there.
We are
All right.
excited to partner and help bring this to you guys and looking forward to getting things rolling and getting it kicked off. Erica, does that give you everything you need to kind of reword the MOU and get that moving forward?
Yes, yes, it does. Thanks, Tim.
Perfect.
I think the last thing on the US Solar is that we are meeting Mondays, and I believe we're going to meet every Monday in August at 2 o'clock. We do need to be cautious of sunshine law, so if we have more than 2 SAB members interested in joining these meetings, we can publicly notice them, but it is easier if we just stick to 2 SAB members, and then, anyone that's interested in attending that's not part of SAB is also always welcome as well. So Chris Larson is definitely, he was at the last meeting. Melody, there's been talk about your interest. I don't know who else would like to participate if we want to have more than 2 SAB members. Again, it's I believe a 48-hour notice is the best. All right,
I'm
don't.
happy to join in on these calls if nobody else is interested. Now that the solar subcommittee is mostly winded down. But if anybody else wanted to join them, I would say just let us know if you're coming and you're able to attend on a Monday, and then we can get it publicly noticed. Otherwise, it would be Chris and myself.
Great, thanks, Melody. So if others, are interested, please feel free to shoot me an email and we can adjust accordingly. And then we'll definitely keep everyone updated. It's going to be an all hands on deck when we hit the ground running on September 1st.
Erica, just so you're aware, of course, we picked the Mondays for our call, and then I realized I forgot that I have a flight on Monday afternoon out to Minnesota to go to the corporate office. So I'll probably be able to catch the first 20 minutes of the call Monday, but then I'll be able to get on a plane.
No worries, Tim. We'll fill you in. Great. Thanks, everyone. I think that wraps up US Solar. Tim, we appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me and look forward to kind of moving this forward over the next month and then getting it launched. I cannot wait to see what kind of impact we can have.
Thank you.
So you guys have a good day.
Thank you. Cheers.
You as well.
Thank you. Oh man, that's so exciting. We're maybe finally gonna get to our 100% goals. All right, moving on the agenda is Cynthia with the Solar Ordinance Subcommittee recommendations, who was at the Planning Commission last night.
I'm gonna share my screen here. And I see you guys have a lot on your agenda, so I'm gonna try to move through this fairly fast, but I wouldn't mind sending a PDF to you guys of these slides so you can ingest them more. So myself, Erica, Melody, Larry, and Billy Giblin, Karen Blakemore, who's a trustee, was with us for a bit. Larry, Whitney Owens is our solar expert, installer, and code writer, and she's a local. I'm Cynthia Bakke. We met 5 times from April to June, and we were looking at basically what are zoning barriers to adopting more solar in the town? And when codes are included, when you have inclusion of zoning codes and comprehensive plans and mentions of solar, you see more solar in the community. So we want to support that. I'm going to move through this kind of fast here. The recommended definitions, they come pretty much from SolSmart, which is a designation agency. We have achieved SolSmart bronze designation, and that was from the work of the previous sustainability coordinator. And then I picked that up when before we were named with Erica, which is pretty awesome. And I got to do some building permitting stuff in order to get us across the finish line to bronze. So we're trying to go for silver and gold. That's a bit of work of us. I think it's fairly easily, but gold will take a little bit of work and some other stuff in the future. But we looked at adopting, and like I said, these definitions are pretty straightforward, and these definitions pretty much came from SolSmart, and we did tweak one of them. So when we look at the large scale and the medium scale, there are 40,000 square feet of surface area or more or less. And it's the main use on the lot. So it's not a house that then has ground mount solar. That is the main thing that's really going on there. And that is at such large scale. Those are, that's nearly an acre. One of the next slides, we'll kind of talk about the direction that we wanted to go specifically for something like, which would be essentially a solar garden. Of pertinence is the solar energy system, small scale. It's ground mounted, occupies up to 1,750 square feet of solar panel surface area. And that can also, that square footage doesn't include what's on the roof, but we want to support as much solar on the roof as possible. And the only caveat is ensuring that fire code pathways are insured. Medium and large scale, because it's so large, we suggested that it goes through special reviews process. So it'd go through to the Planning Commission and Board of Trustees, who would make the determination, and there's an opportunity for public comment. So we thought that would be important because some people do not love solar as much as we do and would want to comment on it. I think it would be the greatest neighbor I could ever have, but others may not. So looking at that from the perspective of the opportunity for public comment, we think that that is a good way to go. Building height, want to put a pin in this one and we'll come back. This is where we spent the most time talking as a subcommittee. The maximum building height in the town is 35 feet for a main structure. And we talked about roof mounted systems being flush mounted as much as possible, and the allowance to exceed the maximum building height up to no more than 5 feet. And of that discussion, it was talked about also doing that for new construction. So not just existing buildings, but allowing new construction to do that. And in order to really support solar so that builders wouldn't try to maximize building square footage and not put solar in the end. When we went to the Planning Commission, this was the one sticking point. They didn't mind any of the other recommendations, but this one definitely was not something that was supported by the Planning Commission. But, we need to talk about that and kind of get the band back together so we can talk about how we want to approach the Board of Trustees with that in mind. Ground mounted systems would have a maximum height that wouldn't exceed the allowed accessory height for the zoning district, which is between 20 and 25 feet, depending on the zoning district that they're in. And that was not met with any opposition. Nothing else was met with opposition, just this building height piece of being able to exceed the maximum building height. Planning Commission feels that kind of in a stodgy way, it should go for a variance. And that is a process that takes time, money, and energy, and not everyone may go through. So that's, something that we need to reconvene to talk about. Lot coverage is looking at what is the impervious surface that is below ground mounted panels. Impervious surface is any structure, concrete or asphalt, and it's going to change the way water hits the property, the sheet flow across the property, and potentially have drainage and erosion issues. So when you cover things with concrete, that is going to increase that impervious surface. It's counted in the allowable lot coverage on the property. And what we talked about is if there's vegetative cover below the panels, then it should not count. And if it's on a concrete pad, then it would. And there was an opportunity to go to a farm, and unfortunately I was sick and I couldn't go to Jack's solar farm, but Erica and others went down to go look at that, where they are growing food underneath solar panels. Pretty fantastic thing. Performance standards are dust, glare, odor, those kind of things, emissions. What we talked about is making sure that solar is exempt from glare, because it doesn't have more glare than a window. And they specifically designed solar panels in order to absorb as much light as possible. And they are coated to reduce that glare. So that is the last slide. And backing up, this was, again, the one sticking point with the Planning Commission. And it's ultimately the Board of Trustees that makes the decision. So while the Planning Commission would make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, ultimately the board will make that decision whether or not they would support it. 5 feet is pretty common in municipalities that allow solar panels to exceed in height. This is explicitly for rooftop solar. And we thought that we could support that in terms of trying to get people looking forward. And the Planning Commission moves slow and isn't super innovative. So with that, I will say thank you. It's been super exciting to listen to everything you guys are doing. And I was on the SAB for a year or so back in 2014, and it was a cloud factory. And so it's beautiful to see like forward motion on so many things in so many different directions and so many positive things. And I can answer any questions really quickly, but I know you guys don't have too terribly much time.
Thanks, Cynthia. Yeah, the building height was something that I also was originally on the side that the Planning Commission was last night of, they shouldn't be able to exceed 35 feet if they're a new build. However, throughout the discussions with Whitney and the other members of the subcommittee, I was slowly kind of turned over to the idea to allow this. And I think there was several factors which were, if you're going for the 2.5-story building like Steve has, you really do need to maximize that 35 feet. And so it is reasonable to think that builder is going to want to use that whole space. And this would be a way to kind of reduce that barrier. Another being that it's just not going to be a huge enough issue. We're not going to have 100 people that are all putting solar panel on their roofs all at the same time. And so that it would kind of be a slow ease in process to this kind of jump in building height. And then the last being that there are lots of other cities and towns and different places that allow this as well. And if we really want to have the Silver Soul Smart designation, then this would be something we should try to push for. And so I would say I still recommend the exception, knowing that the BOT might shoot it down. But I'm also interested to see what other SAB members have to say. So if anybody else has anything, go ahead.
Well, having worked with Cynthia and the others, I just want to congratulate Cynthia for just giving us leadership. Way to go. I do have a question. SolSmart Gold. It seems to me that that's what we should be thinking about long term. And so, how big an impediment to achieving that long term would this flaw be? And I see it as a flaw. It's just kind of ridiculous. I'm right there with Cynthia on the sort of impatience with the PC. But on the other hand, they acted and they did it. We got to live with it. So, but do you know offhand, Cynthia, would this like banish us from SolSmart Gold?
Really, silver, there's like one more piece, and I believe it's like exempting solar from accessory uses. And gold is really more of there are other elements that we need to attain. So getting solar in the code. So that's, this piece of taking these recommendations and drafting an ordinance so that it's installed in the zoning code, those definitions and those aspects. And then the other big piece, and this is got a price tag because we need to update our comprehensive plan and include solar in it. And so that's got put off because of COVID. And so we're looking at, 2023, 2024. The last comprehensive update there, it was in 2013. And I think it was about 200,000. The cost, and we hired a company. I had just come into working for the town at the time. And I think it was like a year before that was a steering committee for the comprehensive plan. So obviously we have something to work with, and we won an honor award for sustainability for that 2013 update. And there are other sections of the comprehensive plan we need to add. But I would say gold is a year or so out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say thanks for all the work that went into this, and it looks really good. And I would say I support the exception or exemption. It makes a great deal of sense.
I think the only challenge, Ellen, is, there are some districts like Old Town and Central Business District that are a lot more dense, where, having higher panels, I wouldn't want it to impede somebody else's access, that kind of thing. So we'll see how that will fare, but basically, we were going to go visit the BOT on the 2nd, and with the conversation with the Planning Commission, Miranda suggested we reconvene and talk about what we're going to do, our plan of attack, and come back at you on the 16th. So you'll definitely see it. I know, I'm not sure if Karen Blakebore is back from Norway by then, but I know she's absolutely in support. When she was on our subcommittee, she was like, blanket approval, everything. And I've been the clerk for the Board of Zoning Adjustment and the Planning Commission for 9 years. And I know this board, and I anticipated this opposition the entire time. From the moment they said, we need to form a subcommittee, I was like, what do you mean? This should already be done. But we've been bracing ourselves for this, and we'll see how it fares. But I am so grateful for your support, Alan. And it's been fantastic to work with Larry and Erica and Melody and Billy and Whitney as we've tried to bang out these recommendations. And, we haven't done a draft we're not looking at a draft ordinance yet, but this would be the next step to getting that and working on getting it in the zoning code, which is certainly fantastic. And on a personal level, or, personal professional level, this has been like 7 years I've wanted to get this designation. So it's really cool to see us get there, get bronze. And, now we just have to nail the dismount, get silver, gold, and then stopping us. Melody, if I can join your group for the energy group, if I'm able to do that with my schedule, I'd be interested.
Yeah, that would be great. That's awesome. Rich, do you have any thoughts?
No, just congratulations on a really great job doing this.
We're getting there, Nederland. We're getting there. Thanks, everyone.
Cynthia, real
Yeah.
quick, I just wanted to add, with the planning commission, the final comments, one commissioner said that, she supports up to 40 feet for new build for solar. And the rest were, the folks were definitely not in support of that. But the comments were that they wanted to have an avenue for neighbors to object if it did limit their visibility, right? As Cynthia was sharing. So I wonder, Cynthia, is there another way that they would be able to object if there was a limitation on visibility because of a solar install, or is it really having this language would be the only way that they could do that?
Pretty much. I mean, that's the law of the land is the ordinance. And I don't want it to be, I don't want this to spin off into a subjective thing. We all have a lot of opinions in Nederland. So it's really best when stuff is very clear for staff and we're not, in a subjective case. I would say that, and we kind of want to be careful because building, although people have comments, and I certainly get all of them, on, what are they building there? And I don't like my neighbor's thing and whatever. Building does not require public weigh-in. And I'm a little hesitant, to put an added burden on building that doesn't currently exist. But one of the things that they did note was that sort of kind of piggybacking onto that was the applicant showing that they really had no other choice, and this was the way that they had to go. And, sort of, providing that merit, which I think they could do with me, through building permitting and whatnot, that, in the fire department or whatever, that they sort of take that opportunity. And if there is yeah, I mean, maybe some kind of clause, but I just kind of want to be careful in trying to remove zoning barriers that we don't create a building barrier that currently does not exist. So, maybe we have to meet in the middle at a lower height, or maybe there's a process, maybe the ordinance has a process if it needs to go above, that there's somehow more, because it's not going to affect most people. And like Melody said, I don't think it's going to be, a train load coming at us. I think it's going to be here and there. And then, hopefully we see so much solar for everyone who is able to afford it. And then picking that up with a community solar garden, which is just this beautiful dovetail. And, in 5 years, we'll laugh at this whole conversation that we needed to work so hard, banging heads with the planning commission on not being forward thinking when all of us here know that this is of primary importance and concern. And as a staff member, I do my best, but I have to maintain neutrality and unbiasedness. I can be really a booster and, pretty zealous about stuff, but, my voice has to be pretty straightforward because I also clerk for the planning commission. So I understand, the planning mind and how they're approaching things. And so, here again, the Board of Trustees actually ultimately has the power, and they have in certain cases, like with marijuana and other things, said, thank you for your planning commission recommendations, and we're going to go in this direction. So I think there probably will be board members, Alan and Karen, and possibly others who are going to, decide to go that route anyway, because ultimately they got the power. And it, we may or may not be able to win people over. I was super grateful for Stephanie Herring's comments, where she absolutely supported it and said she's got no issues with it. and she sees it as a opportunity to look to the future. So I don't know if anyone else, I know Billy would be there if he was able to attend that meeting, but he was in Maine on a canoe trip, so we didn't have him there. But I think, you know, some of those planning commission members, they are not going to change their mind, maybe in 5 years, but I don't know that they will change their mind. So, you know, the question is whether or not we work at changing their mind by lessening what we're trying to do. And then maybe a future ordinance will change it, you know, or work at getting more support for that, and or figuring out, you know, what would be the opposition in the town. Maybe that's a survey question.
Yeah, I guess so. Another thing to ask is, have we reached out to SoulSmart to see what they recommend? They may have some solid recommendations for us. And then
I believe that is their recommendation. You know, they
as far as the pushback, you know what I mean?
Oh, good idea.
Yeah, and then the other question or the other comment was last night at the Planning Commission, someone who was discussing all of the new buildings in the last about decade. And the new buildings are huge. You know, we're talking like 80 Big Springs. We're talking Rasham's, you know, new build above her restaurant. We're talking, you know, Tin Shed Salto, like big buildings that if we were to actually look at them on an individual basis, it's almost like a no-brainer. It's like, of course, we want these big energy using buildings to have solar panels, even if they're going to go above 35 feet. So I wonder if it's worth looking at, okay, in the last decade, these are the new builds, these are the situations, you know, would you want solar on these buildings, yes or no? And do you want to make it easier or do you want to add another barrier? You know, I wonder if we actually did more of the homework as far as like what has been done with new builds in a certain time period up to recent, you know, where we are today, that may help us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the solar subcommittee can, you know, I mean, we can decide if we want to go for a lesser impact or strategize on how to change hearts and minds. You know, I mean, I think they should already be there. It was that same planning commissioner who mentioned all the new builds coming up, Roger Cornell, who noted in another meeting that, you know, we adopted zoning and that's his, you know, love of life is zoning in 1981, and solar panels have been around longer. You know, so it's like, it's there with Roger, but yet there's still the, you know, and he's got a large lot. He's not going to be affected by other people's solar, but kind of, I don't know how to disengage that sort of, that mindset of implying that control for others. You know, it's challenging. But, you know, we could strategize either way. Anyway, I think that look out for an email and we'll see if we can't reconvene and determine which direction we want to go in on that. We have a good portion of the membership here tonight, but once Billy gets back, and see if we can't bring Whitney into it and figure out if we want to play our hand or reconsider.
Would an informal vote help from SAB tonight?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I would motion that we recommend all of the recommendations as worded put forth by the Solar Ordinance Subcommittee.
Second.
And I will call the vote. Rich,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Motion passes.
Okay, awesome. We will look out for an email and we'll figure out when we can meet and if there's anything we need to chat about. Otherwise, you know, I think we're hitting the BOT August 16th. I will, in the interim, look at opposition and ways to disarm the opposition.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Appreciate you guys.
All right. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is creating an energy subcommittee. So I think this is an idea that's kind of been tossed around for a long time. I think unofficially, the original 100% renewable crowd probably kind of served this function, those that were jumping on board to try to get that resolution passed. And we haven't really had anybody really holding the seat of the main head of information on the SAB about what we're doing about renewable energy, but also energy efficiency, and the creation of goals there. So Eric and I had talked about, and I think others support as well, creating a subcommittee that really handles that information. And I believe Erica had let us know that Chris is willing to kind of take on that role of the chair of that subcommittee, which is great. And so we wanted to bring it before the SAB. Do you guys agree? What are your thoughts on it? And then we could vote on whether or not we want to go ahead and appoint Chris as the chair of that, and appoint any other SAB members that might want to sit on that. So Erica, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective and in talking with folks, I would hope that this energy subcommittee is really focused on this US solar campaign, and then of course other energy related topics. So I would like them to be one and then kind of adapt as projects present and move forward and are completed. Obviously, this is your all's subcommittee, so it's really up to you and how you all feel it should be structured and what it should be tasked with. But that's kind of, I think that was the initial conversation with folks I had talked with. Just wanted to share that idea. Thoughts? What are y'all thinking?
Well, I'm totally excited by all of this for all the obvious reasons. This is wonderful. And I do think the subcommittee should take it on as number one goal is to do the US solar campaign. And then hopefully it'll live on for all the other things. So, and I'm also way excited that Chris is willing to chair this. He's so perfect for this. So I'll just stop there. It's like, way to go. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, everybody. This is kind of like perfect from my perspective. So I'll stop with that. But I'm like, wow.
Thank you, Larry. You've been really instrumental in this coming forward again. And one thing I just wanted to add was, it has been suggested to me that a number of the other boards operate with subcommittees. So when folks are on the board, they actually have a subcommittee that they need to join, and they have choices. And then they operate usually in teams of 2 for Sunshine Law, and they just kind of work between board meetings. So we used to have an agriculture group. We have Zero Waste, of which Larry is the chair. Melody is very active with the farmers market, which is kind of, and Melody, correct me, but the agriculture group kind of morphed into the farmers market. The farmers market came from the agriculture subcommittee.
Yeah, that second one.
Yes. So it's something that we've had maybe more of in the past, and has been suggested as like a very high functioning way to organize boards and special focus.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also a way to increase engagement and participation with the community, especially, we've seen with the community agriculture group how the farmers market did grow out of that. There are discussions in the works. We all kind of meet together outside of an official group at this point, and we're trying to bring that back, but that's separate. And then also, most recently with the zero waste team, I mean, it's just been so great to see how many people in town are really passionate about zero waste and what they want to do about it. And I think we do have that same support for energy. And this is a way that people can get involved without so much of the duty that comes with being on an advisory board officially. And it's also a way to gather new interest. So, yeah. Do any other SAB members, besides myself, have interest on serving on that subcommittee?
I do, definitely. I don't want to complicate too many, having too many board members have to meet and having to go public. But I can see how if Chris is on it, and if you were a Melody, then, you know, me, it would automatically make it a public meeting. So if that's an issue, we can, you know, I don't know, Erica, do you have any thoughts?
I have some thoughts about sunshine law.
Yeah.
I think it's worth discussing as a group. I mean, we can publicly notice. I think the biggest hurdle is just that it makes email communication challenging. Where like the, solar ordinance subcommittee couldn't reply all because there was a number of folks on boards, but we made it work. So I do think there's a way around it. And I do feel like there's a lot of value to having more folks in the conversation. So I think as long as we know the pros and cons and we decide to go with 3 staff members or 4, I guess 4 would be a big chunk of the board. I think that would be just important that we're aware of kind of what we're getting into.
Thank you for mentioning the email, because that's actually my main concern, really. It's like we cannot email each other, and I've never experienced anything like this before on a board, and it's a killer in some ways. And so that makes me think that I should not join the subcommittee right now, so that there would be at least unimpeded email access between the main players. So why don't we leave it at that for right now, and deal with any outlier events later. But thank you, Erica.
I would certainly like to be in the loop, but don't have the time to be on the subcommittee, but I'd definitely like to be informed of what's going on and responding informally.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the subcommittee's chair basically will give us an update pretty much every meeting. There might be 1 or 2 where we, skip one because nothing new has changed. But generally, it's good to get an update at every meeting from those subcommittees. So, yeah. And we'll need your guys' help to go around and campaign this U.S. Solar and get people to actually, jump in on it and subscribe. Any further thoughts or discussion, or does somebody want to make a motion?
Well, I'd be happy to make a motion that we create an energy subcommittee. If that suffices as just a motion, I'll make that. If we need to add Chris to it or something, that's great.
I second.
All right. I would say, yeah, we should motion the creation of the subcommittee. with Chris serving as chair, and you know, a SAB member always serves as chair. So yeah, we will call the vote. Alan,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
and I am a yes. So thank you guys. I think this will be exciting, and we hope to be able to bring some more people from town on into the discussion of the U.S. solar campaign and then other energy things moving forward. Number 5 on our agenda is applicants for the alternate board seat. Is that a Macy presentation?
No, I can take it over. So we have 3 applicants for the alternate position because Alan has moved into a full-time SAB position. And so we have 3 folks. We have Patricia Dowd, we have Max Link, and then we also have, please help me with the pronunciation.
I'll help you. My name is Gijs. It's called Gijs, but you can call me Will. My second name is Will. It's a lot easier. I can understand
Nice.
it. Yes, Gijs. Oh, there you go. Very nice. Very nicely done.
I don't have quite the gutter. I'll work on it.
No worries.
But Will also works. That's great. Okay, so we have 3 applicants for the alternate position, and it would be great to give each of these applicants some time to introduce themselves, share a bit about themselves and why they're interested in joining the SAB board as an alternate position. And then the board can decide. So talking to Miranda about this, we can decide to vote and to have a suggested alternate for the BOT. We can do a vote online here, or we could also, if you all wanted to text me your vote, we can also do a silent vote as well. So think about that and what you prefer, but I'd love to give applicants some time to talk about themselves and why they're interested in joining this board. Who would like to go first? Patricia.
Oh, sure.
Oh.
Hi everyone, I'm Patricia Dowd. I live in Nederland, Colorado. I'm in Big Springs. I've lived in Big Springs for about 2 years, and then previously I was in Old Town for 5 years. And I have a very sort of nuanced experience with the Sustainability Advisory Board. I previously had a full-time position with the board, and then I decided to transition off the board because I started working for Governor Polis, and I wasn't sure about my time commitment with my new job being in Denver a couple of days a week. And my interest in serving as an alternative for me is, I feel like it's a great opportunity for me to continue to be involved with the Sustainability Advisory Board and the town of Nederland as it relates to climate change, sustainability, renewable energy, and isn't the full-on dedication that is required of a full-time position. My background is in conservation. I mentioned currently I'm leading the governor's community involvement campaign as it relates to climate change and disaster relief. And my work is through the lens of community service and community engagement. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for Nederland to continue to move forward its sustainability goals and meet its program requirements, and as well as the state goals as it relates to renewable energy and sustainability. And I can work both at a local level and a state level to help achieve those goals. So thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. If it works for the board, why don't we just go through introductions and then we can ask some questions of applicants? So Max, Will, who'd like to go next?
I can. Oh, well, you know what? Max, go first. No problem.
Will, are you European based? It's like the middle of the night for you right now.
That's correct. It is 5 a.m. right now.
I love your dedication.
Yeah, there you go. But no worries, I'm already over my sleep. Max, you can go first. I'll sleep after. No worries.
Thank you. I prepared a statement that I just wanted to give to the SAB before accepting questions. So I'll launch that now. Firstly, I would like to thank the Sustainability Advisory Board for giving me the chance to speak today and ask for your recommendation to the Board of Trustees for the alternate position. I moved to Nederland at the end of May this year to intern for Wild Bear. Through the course of my internship and in my free time outside of it, I have truly come to love Nederland. From chatting with librarians at the community library to hiking during the solstice on West Magnolia, I've come to appreciate everything this town has. Interning with Wild Bear has also allowed me to interact with many of the kids here, get to know the people of Nederland better, and explore Ned. I became interested in the SAB position after researching how I could become more involved in the sustainability community here. I knew I wanted to apply after reviewing the ongoing work of the SAB, such as the Green Business Program and everything I have heard during this meeting. As an environmental economics major at Cornell University, I see the value in a public-private community partnership to hasten a green transition. Using high-efficiency, smart policy approaches is an area in which I both want to grow and participate. I have worked on municipal energy policy through Ithaca Carbon Neutral 2030, an organization at Cornell that partnered with the city of Ithaca to advise policymakers on the city's green transition. I worked primarily on community choice aggregation and explored best practices within CCAs to ensure affordability and clean energy for residents and businesses in Ithaca. Another area of the SAB's work that interested me was the community agriculture goal. I believe that agriculture has historically played an undersized role in sustainability considerations, and I'm interested in expanding it in Nederland. Other relevant experiences from high school range from marking up a school safety bill that went before the Colorado General Assembly to running a voter registration and information campaign across several Denver area high schools. During college, I've pursued learning opportunities through coursework, the aforementioned energy policy team, and other experiences. This includes writing economic policy for Cornell's student-run think tank and arguing for pediatric health initiatives as the most effective human capital investment in low-income countries. This past April, I met with Tom Below, Chief of Finance at the United Nations Development Program at the UN headquarters in New York City, where I argued for greater salience of methane emissions as opposed to solely carbon emissions in metrics such as the Planetary Pressure Adjusted Human Development Index. Finally, as the undergraduate representative to the Department of Natural Resources, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, I'm constantly thinking about ways to build an accessible, inclusive, and sustainable future. I've learned a lot from these opportunities and hope to apply my diversity of experiences to working with SAB. Lastly, I would like to address two components of my application for the alternate position. The first is that I am young. I turned 20 less than a month ago. And although this may sound like a drawback, I consider my age an asset, especially combined with my depth of experience. Young people today are the most important stakeholders in anything related to sustainability. By definition, sustainability involves long-term well-being, and that time horizon is most applicable to young people. For this exact reason, my commitment to sustainability and environmental policy is unrivaled. Due to the imminence of the climate crisis, I cannot wait anymore to advance sustainability goals. The sustainability movement shouldn't just accommodate the presence of young people, it should encourage it. So it is for that reason that I applied to serve as an alternate. Secondly, I will be leaving Nederland in mid-August to return to school. I understand that this is an appointment of a few years and have considered whether or not I can commit. I did not make the decision to apply lightly, and the virtual option for these meetings factored into my decision. I believe that after I leave for school and in the future, I can ensure a continuing commitment to the SAB. To close, I again thank everyone for this opportunity to speak and hope that I receive a recommendation from the Board of Trustees. I've been really impressed with the work accomplished during this meeting alone and has amplified my interest in joining as an alternate. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Will.
Yes. First of all, Max, very impressive what you've already done for such a young age. That is really impressive. Like 20 years old and already done so much for sustainability. That's amazing. I first want to thank everyone for having me here, even at this late hour for me. And I think it's amazing to hear after such a meeting how Nederland is really trying to be or becoming a example community for other communities. And that is amazing for such a small community as it is. For me, living in the real Nederland, no, but a different Nederland. No, I'm from the Netherlands. In Dutch language, you say Nederland, so it is a coincidence, but yeah. But no, I live in a very small community as well here in the Netherlands, and we have about 1,500 people here living, and the amount of your work you put into your community is already a lot more than we do. We're very innovative here, but it seems like that you really commit with teamwork to get towards goals, and that's amazing. So just wanted to point that out. For the rest, I made a very small presentation, which I'm going to show you. I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'm going to take it. Let me see if it works. Share. There you go. And yeah, is everyone able to see it? Yeah, okay, good. I don't know why it doesn't go full screen, but you know what, we'll just do with it. So first, my introduction. Like I said, my name is Gijs. I have a hospitality background. I worked in a lot of hotel chains for Intercontinental, for DoubleTree by Hilton, mainly in Amsterdam, but also in Miami. Therefore, I worked already in all these hotels. I already worked with sustainable projects as cleanup days. I worked for a hotel, the Meuvik Hotel, which is a Swiss chain, which does a lot for sustainability already. They have a Green Key certification. They are very innovative in that sense. So I already always got inspired by sustainability. Eventually, I decided to get my Bachelor of Administration. And while getting my bachelor, I went to Miami. So I lived in Miami for a year. That's where I met my girlfriend as well. And yeah, I really got almost in love with the American people. Although Miami is a way different place than Colorado, I think it was a great experience, and I always wanted to already, before I met my girlfriend, I always wanted to move to the United States because I think it's a place of a lot of opportunity, and that's exactly what you show in your small community as well. And after that, I came back. We went through the pandemic together. It was a tough time for me and my girlfriend, but now we decided to take it to the next step, and we decided to get married. And that's all in progress, and moved to Colorado. And since I've been working with sustainability, I think it's an amazing subject, and I decided to follow 2 specializations, which you can see here from the University of Colorado. I'm working to get more, and yeah, in that sense, I really wanted to commit to something, to a smaller community, to feel my impact. But I'm gonna talk about impact as we speak. Well, first I'm going to go over my traits, actually. So I'm a critical thinker. At my university, we used to have a program called problem-based learning, where we were in a board as well with different roles. We had to we got a problem that could be in sustainability, could be a business-related problem, and we had to work towards progress. And I always got the feedback that I'm a critical thinker, that I'm not talking a lot, but I talk when it matters, and I let my opinion know when it matters, and to keep progressing in different projects and different movements. And that's exactly how I work. I always try to strive forward and not backward. I'm also a team player, and I think that always sounds very cheesy, because who isn't nowadays? Who isn't a team player? But I think that an individual can make a huge impact, but I think if you want to implement change, that you have to do that with a team. You have to do it together. I'm also very entrepreneurial. I've started multiple companies during my lifetime. Not all of them were very successful, some were. And I'm still working on that as well. Although currently I'm working in mental health care as an account manager, key account manager actually. So I'm more on the social sustainability side at the moment, which I love to eventually implement in Nederland, Colorado as well. And that's where we get to my part of my contribution to Nederland, Colorado. I thought it was amazing that I might make this actually into Inspire, but I just want to go over it really quickly. So I want to introduce Nederland to new ways of circular thinking. and by implementing innovation in energy efficiency to work towards the 100% renewable energy goal. I want to network, expanding our network of professionals and connecting more with the local people and other sustainability enthusiasts. I want to save and implement ways to store and save renewable energy from moments that less renewable energy can be produced. Saving nature by respecting it and to work with it and not against it. I want to participate in community events, voluntary projects, and inspire others to become involved in our cause. Identify opportunities for companies to become more sustainable on a social and environmental scale. And this also has to do with the green business program that you guys have, which I think is something that I could contribute a lot to since coming from a business background with a sustainability passion. Reduce, create programs for waste reduction and recycling. And earn is my last one, and I think that's a very important one. I want to reward locals for sustainable behavior and showcase community accomplishments, which you guys already do, which is a great initiative. Then as a last, I want to talk about my goals as an alternate board member. First, I want to learn more about Netherlands, and more about the community, the people. I've already done a lot of research. I think you guys have an amazing small community. I think the Frozen Dead Guy days was definitely the most interesting fact that I could find of Nederland. But I think it's a small community which makes very cozy, but still stands a big foot in this world. I want to connect with my peers, locals, and sustainability professionals of Colorado. And I want to be involved in the community to make a change and to make Nederland, like I said, an example to others. That's exactly what I want to achieve. And that's it.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate that presentation. So let's open it up to the group. Questions for these candidates?
I have a question for Will. Did you say you're moving to Netherlands?
I'm moving to Colorado. I don't know if I'm moving to Netherlands. I would love to. But we are now in the visa process. It will take still a couple of months, especially during the pandemic, everything became slower and slower. But I am moving to Colorado. We are looking at Denver area, but I would love to sit more towards the area of Nederland and to be, like I said, involved in Nederland.
Okay, thank you. And Max, you said you're going to be back at CU in August?
Yeah, I fly out to New York on August 20th.
Okay. And Patricia, how many days a week do you work at for Governor Polis? Maybe you stepped away. Those are my questions.
Thanks, Alan. Other questions? Larry, it looked like you had one.
I don't have any questions really that are burning, but I'm just delighted that we had such fabulous candidates. I mean, how lucky are we just listening to these three? So already I'm thinking, wow, and I would have to choose. So it's just already very difficult for me, but I like the fact that it's difficult because of the stellar quality of all three of these. So I just want to thank them.
I agree. I wish we could appoint 3 people right now.
I concur with both of you. It's very impressive. Everybody that has asked applied.
And I would say whoever we pick, I hope the other two folks will still stay involved and attend our meetings. We have like it or not, we have a lot of turnover in the SAB. So, participate. There'll be an opening sooner than
Yeah.
yeah, we always welcome
Hi,
participation.
this is Patricia. I mostly am in Denver Monday and Tuesday. However, there's flexibility in terms of what that looks like just based on my schedule and kind of the work I'm doing in the field. This week, for instance, my office was in Steamboat for 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and then we're in Fort Collins sort of like Wednesday, Thursday, looking at the Colorado service plan, like the state service plan, looking at where and how environmental issues can be solved with service, whether that's AmeriCorps volunteers or local volunteers to solve some of the biggest issues going on in Colorado with climate and environmental issues. So I work from home part of the week, and then part of the week I'm in Denver, and some of the week I'm on the road throughout the state.
Sounds like a great job. How do we want to proceed?
Rich, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, although I sort of have a question, but it's not really for the applicants. Is there a historical sort of preference for people on the SAB board to live in or near Nederland while serving on the SAB?
Yeah, so that was one of the big pieces that there was, I would say, a little bit of contention over when we passed our bylaws a few months ago or last year, where essentially you do not have to be a Nederland resident. Although clearly by precedence, people do prefer that you be a Nederland resident to serve on a board. And so the reasoning being that with sustainability, because it is such a global issue and an issue where you need to collaborate and involve those that are outside, and the historic complaint from those that are up on Ridge, up on Sugarloaf, out in Caribou, that they would like an avenue to participate in town government, even though they live in Boulder County. That we did ultimately decide that you do not have to be a resident to serve on the SAB. So. So does the SAB board feel like they want to take a secret vote and recommend one of the three applicants? Or do we feel otherwise and we think that the BOT will make a competent decision between the three?
It's a tough choice, but I do think we should make a confidential vote and make a recommendation to the BOT.
I remember that Tom said, as a BOT member, they wanted us to make a recommendation to make it easier for them. So I can see why that would be helpful to BOT. I wonder if we could make this a secret vote, though, and maybe if we all can text Erica. I text her. It's so easy to do. So I mean, that would be one easy way. And, but I do think we need to make a recommendation.
Just, not to be a squeaky wheel, I'm not really sure legally there is such a thing as a truly secret vote in something like this. I think any communications would be subject to quorum.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Rich, we could email, since that's already quorable.
Yeah, I think so.
How would we email more? Would we just each email Erica?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Rich, does that sound legit to you, right offhand?
It does. I mean, and I, you know, we could do it through the chat function, but I think that it's you wouldn't want someone accusing us of using that to like not create a public record when we really should. Even though legally, I don't know that we have to create the record, but if it exists in digital form, it's still a public record. So yeah, I think email is the best way. So who are we sending the email to?
Rich, why don't you send an email to me individually, not the SAB email?
Yeah.
So then, just for clarity, we're asking each SAB member to send an email to Erica with their recommendation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great.
And then do you all want to announce tonight, or would you like to just share that with the BOT, and then these folks could still go to the BOT meeting, share your reasons that you shared with us that are so impressive, and then the BOT makes their own decision. So the BOT has the final vote, and they can just take our recommendation as a piece of that decision-making process. So there's 7 members of the Board of Trustees that would all vote independently on who would have this alternate position. And again, I just want to second like this. I'm so appreciative of you all being here tonight and wanting to be on this board. We have had times where there's been quite a few vacancies, and I also would love to see all of you participate with the many things we have going on with sustainability in Nederland, no matter the results on who gets this alternate position.
Yeah, please attend our meetings regardless of the BOT's decision, because you're all very well qualified and would be great members of the SAB.
Absolutely. So do we want to give it a minute so that everybody can vote?
I'm just waiting on one more person.
You know, I actually have a technical problem. I only have my iPad for this link. So theoretically, I could go to my phone, which is sitting on my desk, but it's going to take me a minute to do that. So I just realized that problem, but it would take me a minute. I have to go to my phone and enter email on the phone, but I can do that, but it'll just take me a minute. And I don't want to keep us hanging in dead air.
No, go ahead, and maybe Erica can start with a few other updates on things she's been working on.
Oh, great. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to just check, are you all up for this update? We're a little past our normal meeting time. So is everybody up for this? Because I can also send it in an email. And just get like a SAB member thumbs up. Alan, Rich, Melody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and I also just want to throw it out to you guys. If you have things to update me and the rest of the board on, I would love to hear from you. Because I do have quite a few things to discuss with you all.
The only thing I'll mention is that I did survey downtown Nederland and noticed there are very few places to lock up a bike. And I think we need to get a campaign going with the local businesses to request bicycle racks and Pace. Because other than Tin Shed, I saw nothing. I saw no place you could lock up a bike that was a formal bike rack all the way over to the Kathmandu, unless you want to lock them up on a fence. So I think that's a big flaw in our campaign to get people to use alternate transportation. And I'm going to ask some businesses to put in a request for a bike rack.
That's fantastic. Alan, if you have suggestions on businesses too, Matt and I can stop by and talk to them. We're going to do another walkabout on the 15th of August. So
Nature Zone is one that comes to mind.
What was that?
Nature Zone.
Okay.
Right across the street is Crosscut Pizza.
So the bike racks you all know that Pace has for free needs a cement pad, and Matt can install them into the concrete pretty quickly. So if you do get an approval from a business, they want bike racks, shoot me or Matt an email and we will get them up here. It's pretty quick. Thanks, Alan.
They both have cement in front of their businesses.
Okay, perfect.
You know, I didn't see anything at the visitor center. And back when that was being remodeled years ago, I put in the request for a bike rack. And I was told they were going to be installed, and I didn't see one, unless it's hidden around the back someplace, but certainly not in the front. There were some nice benches, but I saw nothing for a bike.
I remember Nikki referring to having those racks, and they're just backlogged on installing them. Erica, do you remember that from one of our zero waste?
I do. I remember that, Larry.
Yeah.
I remember Nikki saying she does have a bunch of bike racks.
Yep.
Well, this is the bicycle season, so we get them installed soon.
I think she is swamped, Alan. That's my sense. She is swamped. I'm just guessing, but that was my takeaway.
Maybe we can get Pace to step in and do it.
Pace cannot do it for the town, but they can do it for businesses and nonprofits. So that's something to think about. So the visitor center it'd be tough. But the other locations you mentioned, and if there's others out there, absolutely, Pace is ready to do that. And I agree, Larry. I think it would not be a great time to ask the utilities to step in and install those. There's just a lot going on and a lot of vacancies. But definitely like this fall, if things slow down, I think it would be good to keep that in mind. So I have a vote. Would you all, I'm going to text Melody actually. Would you all like to hear now?
Yes.
Do you want to announce it, Melody? I just texted you.
Sure. So the vote is that Patricia will serve as our SAB alternate. Well, that we recommend Patricia will serve as our SAB alternate to the BOD. And I do want to thank both of you, Max and Will for joining us tonight. I think all of what you're doing is amazing, and you will continue to provide great things to, wherever you land. And we definitely welcome you back to our SAB meetings whenever you want. They are open to the public. And as well as our energy subcommittee that we just discussed and starting, I'd welcome you to join those discussions and getting US Solar out to the community and really being able to also promote that low income factor when that becomes available for us. So thank you all for being here and for attending our meeting tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Max and Will. Oh, Max, you're still here. Oh, he's gone. All right, we're gonna
No,
follow him.
just
Oh,
me.
Will, you're still here. Okay. Yes, like you had some very specific things in your presentations. It'd be really exciting to hear ideas you have as far as like earn and incentivizing. And I would just love to chat with you about our green business program because it hasn't officially been launched. It's just kind of quietly in the beta testing phase. So if you're interested in working on those things, like let's connect, and we'd love to have you in whatever capacity you have.
Absolutely, I would love that. So let's share contact details and then we'll get in contact. Then we can definitely work on it. I would love to.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll put my email in here. And then you have the larger SAB email.
I don't know. Any email is great if I can get it all. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So the top one is my personal, and then the SAB one is for the whole board.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Great. And then Max, specifically your community choice aggregation, like we need to talk. So and it would be great to connect and to see, what your thoughts are as far as energy and some efforts. And if you want to hit the ground running this summer, we have some serious energy campaigning, and I think your platform at Wildboar would be fantastic. So please, like both of you, we need you.
I second that, absolutely.
So should we continue on this staff update?
Yes. Do you want to email Patricia and let her know after the
Yes.
meeting or something?
Yep, I will email her. Yes.
Thank you.
And I'll CC Miranda. Macy's still on here, so she knows as well, but I'll CC the town.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you, Macy.
And yeah, I would just say, being the clerk for the Board of Trustees, I would like to just encourage you two applicants to attend that meeting and express your interest and share what you shared with the SAB board this evening, because this is just a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. And they will be making their own decision on Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you, Macy.
Of course, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Macy. Great.
All right, y'all up for this? I'm gonna try to keep this to a few minutes. So I did do the Boulder Creek Watershed interview. They are interviewing staff positions and kind of key folks in the Nederland area. But if you haven't done an interview with them, I think they are still looking for interviewees. We did get Eldora through the Green Business Program application, and that was really exciting. 80 Big Springs is still in progress, and we are looking for more applications or more applicants for that. It's still, I'm gonna submit a kind of introduction, and we're gonna try to put that up on the town website so folks can go through that process on their own. But if they want support from myself and Matt Hannon with PACE, we're happy to do that just because the application is still in this iterative process. There's some updates. I just had a green business program meeting with the state today, and there's some updates with Green Business Chapter, which is the application itself, and some of updates from the state as well. So I'm meeting with the head of that program next Friday with Matt, so I'll know more about those details. We did a walkthrough with PACE in mid-July, July 18th, Matt, myself, and Cody Wilstrom. And it was just really great. We met with a number of businesses, got a number of bike racks. Actually, I don't know if we brought some to Busey Brews, but they didn't have a concrete pad that was really appropriate for the bike rack, given their kind of flow pattern of traffic. But they did get a zero waste station, and they're actually hopefully installing solar panels soon. So you all know Boulder County has a $1 per kilowatt rebate program for solar for businesses. So it's a limited pot of funds, and it sounds like Busey will only get a percentage of that based on what was left over at this point, but they got in just in the nick of time to get some funds for their project. There's an Eco Leader training video from EcoCycle. If you haven't done that training, I would absolutely recommend it. Plastics are changing really quickly, but it was very informative. I thought it was well worth the time, and trying to get, town staff and other folks that are interested in that through that training as well. EcoCycle, I've been in touch with Rosie. We're trying to do a EcoCycle tour as well as CHARM. So the Center for Hazardous Resources and Materials, I believe. And so we're trying to do a back-to-back tour with those two entities. It'll be long, but I'm trying to get as many Nederland folks interested in that because there's so much going on there. If you're interested, reach out, let me know. Our next PACE walkthrough is August 15th. I think I mentioned that already. I've been in touch. There's a couple projects right now that are new. So as far as electrification and specific goals and heat pumps, I still am just barely scratching the surface, but I have been working on some electrification other campaigns. So one of them is an EV bike opportunity through the Colorado Energy Office. So I reached out and was connected with Smart Commute Metro, and they've done a couple of e-bike campaigns for low to moderate income folks. Then Sarah Thorne from the Colorado Energy Office, she's in charge of transportation, and the e-bike campaign is in her wheelhouse. And then I also met with a sustainability person, Beth Markham from the city of Vail, and they've done some e-bike programs. So at some point, I would love to hear from you all if you think e-bikes are even appropriate for Nederland, because this fall, there could be some funding available for an e-bike campaign where we possibly ask for 5 or 10 e-bikes, and we could potentially give those to low income folks that qualify. And it might be something like in Vail, it was a 2-year program. They used the bikes for their main commuting for 2 years, and then the bikes were theirs, which e-bikes are very expensive. We listened to TerraQuest a number of months ago, and really kind of per calorie, it's actually more efficient to use an e-bike than it is to actually use a pedal bike where you're going to be burning that many more calories. So if you're not concerned about the athletic piece of it, it could be a really amazing asset for low income folks. Something to think about. Jack's Solar Garden Tour was awesome. Thanks so much for being there, Larry. If people are interested in another tour, I'm sure Byron would be excited to host. We just want to make sure we had enough interest. Tom was also there. Billy Hunter came. It was really great. I also got a sneak tour of a Rivian, which was my first experience with that. So I was excited about that. We talked about the Solar Ordinance group. I also have been in touch with Katrina from the Food Pantry and the Peak to Peak Housing and Human Services. I am part of the housing subcommittee, so I've been kind of participating from the periphery. I haven't been able to attend many meetings, but I did meet with Katrina about our U.S. Solar Garden options, because I really feel like that 20-year 5% discount could be a really strong asset for our low income folks. Plus the LMI, much cheaper community solar garden subscriptions that are coming through the energy office, the Energy Outreach Colorado. I went to the Youth Advisory Board meeting. If you have not met with those kids, they are amazing. So really exciting. They were interested in the housing piece, so I was there for that. We had our first collaborative board meeting. I know Rich was there, Larry was there. We do have a happy hour on August 4th at Very Nice, and we're gonna have breakfast at Salto on the 18th. So the idea is that these are publicly noticed meetings. So more than 2 members of boards can get together, casually talk shop, or just be together and like enjoy space and a beer and breakfast. So if you're interested in those, you should have gotten an invite from Miranda. CC4CA is chugging along. There's a lot happening with policy. I did do an article on plastics for the Mountaineer. I'd love your feedback too. So if you've seen it, I haven't seen it published yet. So please send your feedback my way. I did crunch the numbers on the community energy report. I did just ask for an updated or a comparison community energy report from the Brendel group with our PI efforts. So they're going to be working on that. There is a fleet PI effort that will have its first stakeholder meeting on August 31st. That's from 2 to 5 at the library. If you're really interested in EVs and specifically fleet transitions, it'd be great to have you at that meeting. There's a car share grant application that Leah actually submitted with the Boulder Housing Authority for the Tungsten Village. So I spent last Friday with Peter from Car Share, and we walked around. We started at the town hall parking lot. We moved to RTD. We then went to the library, Tungsten Village, and the community center. And we looked to kind of see where we could have an electric vehicle car share and then pair it with, they call it EVSI, electric vehicle structural infrastructure, but it's a 2 grant application. You ask Excel for the infrastructure and you ask Car Share for the electric vehicle. And so we will see Tungsten Village put an application. We wanted to other locations would be ideal, like downtown lot across from town hall. It's already got the TIPS improvement grant going. We couldn't modify that plan. RTD is a pretty big ship to steer. We just didn't have the time to kind of get with them. It was a 3-week opening for this grant. And then we talked to the library, but the Calvary Chapel owns that library lot. And so they would have to take it to their board. Similarly, the Presbyterian Church had to take it to their board as well. And the car share person felt like the community center was a bit too far away from transit at this point. But the pro of those conversations was that I would like to find EV. Thanks, Will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, I need to get some sleep.
Yes, go to sleep. Go to sleep.
Exactly. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Goodbye.
So the positive of this car share grant was that I need to confirm with the community center in both of these library lots, but they're really good candidates for electric vehicle charging stations. And Charge Ahead Colorado is a great opportunity. They pay for 80%, $9,000 per dual port, up to 80% of the total cost for charging stations. And then if you pair that with Excel's grants, then you can get a much cheaper electric vehicle charging station. So if folks are interested in that, Rich, I know you're the EV person, like I would love to work with you on this because I think it's a really good opportunity and we need more charging stations in town.
Yeah, sure. And I completely agree with that. And the question I would have is for these charging stations, who is the intended audience is not the right word, customer base, I guess, for these charging stations. Because people that have EVs in town, except for the very small percentage, right, of town residents that live in apartments or those townhouses, right? People are going to have the capacity to have their plug it in at home and charge at home, right? Almost everybody that has an electric car is going to do that. Now, I think it's a great thing to encourage people that are coming up here from town or tourists or whatever to drive an EV up the canyon or Coal Creek or whatever. And I think it'd be great to have charging stations for them. So, I mean, just something to think about. But if we're intending it for out of town people, which I think is a great use for it, we need to think about the level of charging because there's these different levels and they have different speeds. The fast chargers are a lot more expensive and they require a lot more electric issues with the grid. But anyway, we don't need to talk about all this tonight. I'm just sort of going on. So.
No, I really appreciate that. We should talk about it and have a more thorough conversation because I don't own a fully electric. I have a hybrid, and I did talk to the Presbyterian church though, and the pastor was charging at one of the downtown chargers. And so, you know, for them, it was like, oh yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to get them at least one dual port for those lots, you know, the Calvary Chapel and the Presbyterian, similar with the community center. But yeah, we should talk and be strategic. There's also a Boulder County regional EV plan, of which I volunteered for one of the groups, which is really kind of the residential outreach. And it would be great to loop you in because there's just a lot going on right now.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Okay.
And I'm also, you know, I'm also a sort of a e-bike enthusiast. So I have thoughts on that, but we don't need to talk about that right now.
We shouldn't talk now. We should talk soon. So the e-bike grant would open in September, October, and the Charge Ahead Colorado grant opens up in October again. So I think if we could have our ducks in a row, it would make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the only thing I would mention is if people like live in the inner core of Nederland, where it's really flat, I'm not really sure e-bikes, things are such short distances, but if you're going up any of the hills outside of town, e-bikes make a huge difference, especially if you don't have the greatest lung capacity or heart capacity. They're really fantastic. So anyway, that's just my thought on that.
Yeah, I will second that with personal experience of living up in Big Springs and using my regular bike for a few years to get to town and back. That is a tough hill. So I invested in the e-bike myself, and it's a breeze. It's any age, any athletic ability, you know, you can get around most of town that way. So I'm in full support of moving forward with that kind of project too.
Awesome. Thanks, you all. Larry?
I have a mountain e-bike, and I absolutely love it. So I'm as pro e-bike as you could possibly get.
Me too.
Alan too. Okay, cool. So we would need to think about what kind of structure we want. It seems to me the lease to own, we apply for 5 or 10 bikes. Maybe we work with the food pantry. We get some locals that are kind of in those services. And then they do 2 years. They use it as a primary mobility source in the summer, right? Vail had a challenge with this too, because similar, like you can't use it in the winter months as well as you can in the summer. And then it's their bike. And so it's also a really good benefit we could bring to our community. So great. Fantastic feedback. There's a lot happening on the transfer station front. So Todd, with Boulder County, we had a compost meeting last week or actually this week, and there is an earth flow in vessel composting facility they are looking at to put at the transfer station. There's lots of questions as far as compost, but it's looking positive. And we talked with a bunch of people during our PACE visit on the 18th, and the restaurants are excited to compost, but they cannot get it to the transfer station themselves. So the county is really looking at, okay, could we support a hauler? Could we have a paid position at the transfer station? I mean, we were even talking about maybe that paid person is like half, responsible for picking up compost in town with the businesses, and half is just kind of managing the compost and making sure that the recipe is right in the in-vessel facility. It would need to cure 30 to 60 days. So we're looking at where that could happen, but really exciting conversation. I just participated in the RCAB meeting last week or yesterday. Sorry, my time's all messed up. So yesterday, that's the Boulder County Resource Conservation Advisory Board, and heard some really interesting stuff. Larry, I need to connect with you because there's just like the EcoCycle made record profits this year. The cost of corrugated cardboard because of the supply chain challenges, the cost of aluminum. But there are some interesting things I hadn't thought about as far as the waste stream and kind of how do we confirm that that waste stream is reliable and making sure that we have sources and more of a consistent stream. So yeah, we'll connect Larry with the zero waste side.
Great.
Yeah. I also heard, side note for y'all, a little tidbit, that EcoCycle has an 11% waste on average. So of all the recycling that is accumulated in Boulder County, there's an 11% waste of that recycled material when it gets to the center, to EcoCycle, which I thought was incredible because that's human behavior that we're relying on to put those products in the recycling bins. I thought the waste might be much higher than that. So it gave me a little hope as like, we're doing this recycling thing okay, right? Of course we could reduce that number, but 11% is pretty good. There's a lot happening with Pi and Excel. We're working on a community campaign, and we're hoping that could overlay with the US solar efforts. So possibly Pi could help us do some marketing for this subscription campaign, maybe some even flyers out to Netherland residents. We'll see. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm sure there's more we could talk about, but it is late. And so if you have specific questions, like please let me know now or send me an email. Alan and I were able to meet. We actually met for lunch. I'm happy to meet with you all anytime to talk about this stuff. It's so great to be able to meet in person now. Feels like it's been a while.
Thanks, Erica.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make the meeting tonight, so in person.
Oh, I couldn't either, Rich. So
Yeah, okay.
summertime is for like moving, right?
Yeah.
Places to go, people to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you all can make the happy hour or the breakfast, I don't know if I can do the happy hour, but I will definitely be at the breakfast on the 18th.
Planning on it.
Okay.
Planning on the happy hour at least.
Yes.
But it also depends upon whether my close contact is COVID free by then.
Oh no.
Yeah. So.
Are you feeling okay?
Oh no, I'm fine. I'm negative, but my wife isn't. So.
Is she doing okay?
Oh yeah, she's it's just like what most people have. It's just sort of like an annoying cold, and I was skeptical she had COVID, but I said, hey, let's go out to dinner. She's like, oh, I don't think I want to. I think I might have COVID. I'm like, nah. We did the test and
She does.
she had COVID. Yeah.
I hope she bounces back quickly.
Oh, I'm sure she will. Sure
Yeah.
she will. So yeah.
Based on the wastewater treatment testing in Nederland, it's like one of the highest spikes they've seen in 2022 right now.
Yeah, it's this Omicron thing, So I had something in April. She has something now, and they're both associated with foreign travel, I think. Yeah. So
Man, such a bummer.
yeah.
Well, I hope you stay healthy. I hope she's healthy
Thanks.
too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion to adjourn?
Larry, did you have any updates on zero waste that you wanted to give us?
Well, No, not really, other than just to say that farmers market is happening, and Melody sort of set the standard for us in terms of what I think of as a zero waste ethic. And so we're there every 2 weeks, and we're operating, and it's going well. So I just wanted to pass that on to people. We are being asked to provide volunteers as monitors for the Jazz Festival on August 20th. And I am going to send out individual emails to basically everybody on this board and on the Zero Waste Subcommittee. It's legal to do that, individual emails, but just asking people to consider monitoring at the Jazz Festival for an hour or so. It's really great fun to do. It's just excellent. It picks your spirits up to see people being so cooperative. And so I will be doing that, but that's all I have to say on this. And with that, if we're done, I'm happy to offer a motion to adjourn this really superb meeting. I mean, little Nederland, Colorado can pull off a meeting like this with all this information at these different levels. It's pretty astonishing, and we should be proud. But I am making a motion to adjourn at 10:01 p.m.
I'll
second that.
I think we have unanimous consent.
We're ready. Macy, thanks so much for being here.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Good
Good night,
evening.
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.